Okay, so welcome to Marie-Claire Beaulieu and Bridget Almas. Marie-Claire is Professor of Classics at Tufts University, as you know, and Bridget Almas, the Senior Software Developer at Perseus Digital Library. Okay, you can start.
Thanks, Monica.
Thank you.
So the goal of my intervention today and Bridget's is to talk about some of the things we've been doing at Tufts in terms of digital classics. And so I've listed a few here, and the ones in yellow are the ones that we're going to talk about today. The other things, especially tree banking, you guys have already heard from Matthew Harrington, and Tim will talk about that also. So I feel I don't need to go over that in detail. So I think the context here is very important, is that we've been trying to integrate digital methods into the curriculum, meaning that our goal is to assign work to our students that will teach them both the humanities contents and digital skills. So we are doing this as best as we can and throughout the classics curriculum. So the workflows that I will present today are ones that I have been using myself in class, and we are talking from freshman university classes to advanced graduate classes. So we're doing it really across the board. So let's start with a workflow that many of you are familiar with, so I don't need really to go into details, I think, about this. This is the Perseus editing workflow, where we have an image. In this case, it's of a medieval manuscript. This is part of the Magna Carta that's housed here in our library. So I was going to do a little live demo, but I'm not prepared for this right now. That's okay. Because I think everyone is quite familiar with this right now. And if not, you guys can always ask later. I can demonstrate that. So the point of this workflow is to transcribe manuscripts by while keeping a direct link to the original document. So we're doing this with this tool called ImageSpect in this case, and it's also software we use from what the Homer Multitext folks have produced. So as you see, we delineate zones of interest and we transcribe directly underneath while the computer calculates the coordinates of the image in a fax attribute. We then produce an epidoc transcription, and you can see here that I've transcribed the document using the fax attributes of each word in order to keep that link. So when you go to the preview screen, you can get back to the original image in context from that view. Here's a word level view, so you can click on that word and get the region of interest and also see where that region of interest is on the original document. In this way, students are learning, first of all, they're learning epidoc encoding, but they're also learning best practices in dealing with documents, meaning that they realize that it is important to tell your audience where you got the information from, and that you have to support your transcription and your understanding of a document with evidence. So that's what they're doing here. And I will say that students get really excited by this project, and they really produce excellent work. So what I'm showing you right now is something my students produced last spring, and we are going to do this again in January, and there is a lot of excitement for that class. I am hoping also this time to add XSLT, so toward the end of the semester I would like students to learn the basics of XSLT so that they can process their XML. I don't know why I have this. Well, we do this workflow with inscriptions as well, as you can see, so this is the same principle. Okay, so this is the same thing with inscription. I want to show you something we did in my intermediary language class this semester. So I teach Greek 7 every fall, and it's called Greek 7, but it's really Greek 3, so this is the third semester of Greek for undergraduates. And so as a little side project at the end of the semester, they transcribed a few inscriptions that they found on Flickr, and I would like to shout out to Gabby for helping me set that up. So here's one student who chose this inscription, and as you can see, Josh Sosin and colleagues have been putting in references to the scientific editions of these stones, and also giving pointers to Phi and so on. What I had my students do was add transcriptions and transcriptions and translations. So in this way, the students are doing the workflow that I just showed earlier in Perseids, and as you can see, Jihao here put a link to a Perseids transcription, so I could show you this.
Well, you can log in as me and see it if you just.
I'm sorry.
Just go ahead.
Yep. Okay.
I should be able to log in as me and it'll come up.
Okay.
We can see the slide, only the slide participation in the Flickr community. Are you there?
Oh, I'm sorry. You guys are not.
Hang on. Sorry. I was trying not everything about the screen, but I will share everything. And if weird notifications come up, then
We're in hyper.
Yeah, so can you guys
Yes.
see the
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks, Bridget.
Yeah, sure.
And if you want to jump in at any point, go for it. So as you can see, this is Jihao's transcription of the text, and we can see, for instance, here he transcribed Khairete. I have another lovely one to show you guys. I don't know where my slides went.
Oh.
Somewhere in the...
Where did your slides go?
I'm not so sure. Ah, there we go. Thank you. I wanted to show you this one. So this is another team of my students, and I just thought this was a lovely example of how students can contribute to the community. So this person named Shankar S. Posted this this picture to Flickr that he was apparently traveling and really loved this stone. And so, as you can see, my students added some information pointing to Phi and also giving a translation. And they're getting a reaction from this person who's very excited to know what the text says. So I think that's really great in terms of having students participate in the Flickr community, and in general also making classics knowledge available. So I'm very excited about this result, and I intend to continue this workflow. Thanks. All right. So now I'd like to talk about things we've done in mythology, and Bridget can jump in at any point to talk about this. So our goal, and what I will show you, is that we've created a social network of Greek mythology. And the goal was to link mythological figures among themselves, first of all, to see who is connected with whom, and that's, of course, highly significant since mythological figures are very conceptual, right? So to see what concept is linked with what helps understand how the Greeks understood their mythological universe, and helps understand the system of thought that's behind it. What we also wanted to do is link it to the geography of Greece. As you guys know, Greek religion is very much a local affair, so it's important to know what myths and what figures are revered where. So that's a point, and also how they pictured the geography of mythology. So what character lives where or travels where, and so on. So we set out to do this by annotating the Smith Dictionary of Mythology that is already on Perseus. So it's in the It's in the public domain, so that made our life easier. And we had students annotate using the hypothesis tool, which is meant to annotate the web. And maybe, Bridget, you want to talk about the serialization of that data?
Sure. Yeah, so we chose hypothesis mainly because it provided a really lightweight way to do annotation without needing our text to be loaded in any particular format or any particular repository. The trade-off with using it was that hypothesis does not, or at least at the time, didn't support working with controlled vocabularies and in standard formats when creating these annotations. So but they did provide an API to retrieve the annotations once you had saved them and made them public. So we took advantage of their API to, as well as Google Documents, in sort of a crazy workflow that we have here, where the students keep a list of the annotations according to the URIs that Hypothesis gives them in a spreadsheet. We ingest that Google spreadsheet into Perseids and then run a conversion on the annotations that Hypothesis produces to serialize them according to the Open Annotation Standard, which Hypothesis doesn't currently adhere to. Well, I think the new W3 standard for annotation we'll all be converging on soon. But as of right now, the hypothesis annotations are in a bit of a custom format from Hypothesis. So we transform them to Open Annotation, and by having the students follow rules for the identifiers that they put into the annotations for both the people, or the mythological characters, as well as the relationships, both of which are derived from standard identifiers and ontologies that we already use. The ontology is SNAP, and the identifiers are the CTS identifiers for the Perseus texts and the short identifiers for the Smiths characters. We take those shorthand entries that the students put into the annotations and apply an algorithm to transform them to their stable identifiers for both the people, the places, and the relationships in the ontology, and then those are preserved as open annotations.
Sounds good. So I can show you what that looks like. We have a little demo up, so you can see. So this is all work in progress. We're fixing it, and this does not have places just yet. I'm going to show you something that.
Just give it a minute.
Yeah.
With our reuse on steroids, we're using a tool that wasn't necessarily meant to load all of this data in the way we're loading it, so it just takes a minute. There we go.
There we go. It's all good. So I'm going to show you the entry on.
The places are there, by the way. They're below.
Oh, they're below. Okay.
I moved the network to the top.
Okay. So this is the entry on Kronos. So you can see the name of my students here who did this particular entry on Kronos. You can see that the graph tells us a lot at a glance about who Kronos is, and we are going to down the line have these relationship links go to the attestation of the relationships. So for instance, in cases where we have alternate fathers and things like that, we can see who attests that relationship. Something that we did this year more systematically is characterization. So how are people, how are mythological figures talked about in ancient texts? So this was actually one of the most successful exercises of the semester. So we reused Anna Krohn's work on breaking the language barrier, which is a series of exercises. It's available from our blog. It's a series of exercises for students who do not know ancient Greek or Latin, for them to get used to using the Perseus tools and finding certain words of interest in the ancient text, linking then to a translation and thinking about the meaning of those words in context. So the students really enjoy that. I want to say that this is a heavily freshman-populated class of 72. So we were doing this in a context where you have lots of students and very few had any experience with classics. So we had them, in this case, the students went and looked for Kronos on Perseus, and we had them find places where Kronos is being described, and link then to a Perseus stable identifier for that particular passage. So we learn all kinds of things from this, right? So Kronos is Neotaton, which reminds us of the early myths about how Kronos overthrows his father Uranos, right? He is also called aged father, Patera Presbyten, which is interesting because in the next generation, Kronos then comes to represent the ancient golden age that will not ever come again, and so on. So we're getting these different descriptions of Kronos. I like this one from Plutarch, rough Kronos, and there's various others. So, of course, we will clean this up. As I said, these attestations of relationship are going to go into the graph, and we're probably going to find another way to display this information. But I think what's interesting is that we are leveraging the Smith's dictionary, which already gives lots of information, and we're adding a lot of value to it. We're also making that information machine actionable, which means that others could potentially reuse it for similar projects, and the students also have access to the data they produced if they wanted to do something with it. So all in all, I would say that worked really well, despite the experimental nature of a lot of what we did. And we also got to reuse, as we noted, many other tools and pieces of software that are out there. So I feel that that was a successful instance of not reinventing the wheel. If I can just go back to my slides.
I'll just add, this display that you're looking at was originally the GapViz application that was written for the Google Ancient Places project, and Thibaut and I extended it, mostly Thibaut, to add the social network app capabilities and also the ability to retrieve text directly from a CTS repository.
That is true. Thanks, Thibaut, and kudos to you guys. Thank you. All right. So those as I said, we did all this, and I want to show you this is my last slide. I wanted to show you an experiment that I did on the last week of class. So as you can see, this is a place annotation in JSON-LD, and I wanted the students to see, and I also wanted to see, and I wanted to see what was underneath that. I think it's important to think about these data models and why is it that we're doing things the way we're doing them, right? So I had students look into this, and these are the little instructions that I put together for them. So this is when they did the places. I showed them an example of a place annotation, and then had them change according to the specifics of what they were doing. And then they sent me a little text document, which I gathered. So that also worked well, and the students reported to me that this made a lot of sense to them. Now they understood a lot of the things they had been doing, and got the point a lot better. So I think that capped the whole workflow very nicely. It was also an occasion to go back over using Hypothesis, the pros and cons of that tool, right? And as you can see, these two lines here, prefix and suffix, right? This is where Hypothesis allows us to pinpoint a word and say, I want to attach my annotation to this. Well, by just writing those lines out, you sort of do away with that need that was one of the reasons that motivated the choice of Hypothesis. So it's interesting to think about these things in relation to just this serialization. So all in all, I would say that was a very successful experiment, and I think my students enjoyed it, in particular the characterization assignment. So that's definitely something I will do again. And in the future, I want to keep going in that direction and expose students more and more to the inner workings of what they're doing while keeping things as manageable as possible, thinking that we're working with often, freshmen and people with no other skills. So yeah, if you guys have any question or if you want to add anything, Bridget.
No, stop sharing the screen.
Okay.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much, Bridget and Marie-Claire. There are questions?
Can we clap?
Yeah, of course.
Just a question, Bridget. Hi, I'm Usama. Hi. A question about editing the manuscript. I don't know if this also could be used to edit the Arabic manuscripts. I did not know this feature. I'm never seen this. So this be used to edit the manuscript, Arabic manuscripts too?
It's hard to understand the question. Is the question whether those tools edit the manuscript as well as annotate the images?
Okay, the question from Usama is whether you could use those same tools to edit Arabic manuscripts. The answer, which I'm sure is yes.
Yes.
Yes. Although so this is the tool we showed Usama is just the social application with the Perseids enhancements, the one that's used for papyri.info. So technically, yes, we're not using the Leiden Plus editor in our environment at the moment, which makes editing Arabic, I think, easier because you're not dealing with the XML tags directly. But I do hope to incorporate Leiden Plus in sooner rather than later, probably using the work that's being done for Attic Inscriptions Online to turn that into a JavaScript-based tool that is portable across applications.
Okay, thank you. Other questions?
One thing that I brought up to Maxime, somewhat to his horror, was the question of actually thinking about how his biographical encyclopedias that he works on differ in composition and idea from those we have for Greco-Roman. And Maxime is really doing the deep dive and resists the idea of generalizing. But I think you've got here a biographical dictionary, 19th century biographical dictionary, cultural memory of Greco-Roman people, and it'd be and also a complement to the way in which Maxime is processing his thing. But it would be interesting as an exercise to try and absorb both threads and see what we can learn about what's different and what's the same. Because I think if you start to use these biographical dictionaries, which are pretty common in different cultures, we have them, what's his name? God, the guy at Harvard, the classical Chinese guy at Harvard, has his stuff for China. Same kind of thing. So what is it that what kinds of things do people select? What are the relationships they value? What goes in there would be a fascinating thing to look at.
Yeah. And one thing sorry, there's a bad echo. I'll add about this process is the work that the students did technically could have been done and could be done by automatic methods, right? The Smith's dictionary being really regular in the way it describes things and the fact that it is in Perseus already marked up with bibliographic references and stuff. We could actually have written a script to produce the annotations that the students did. And so in some ways, the value of this exercise is both the data, but even more importantly, the pedagogical process that the students are doing. But now I think, having gone through that with the students, we have an understanding of how we would represent that data in a machine actionable way, and that could inform efforts to do automated processing across a variety of different sources like you're talking about, Greg, and representing them in the same visualizations.
Okay. So. Thanks. Yes. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Well, I think we can go on because now we have a team. We'll talk about Perseus. We'll.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there was we weren't not entirely sure what my role in this part of the conversation was because there aren't really any questions that I can answer that Bridget or Marie-Claire can answer. So I'm mostly going to show you around Perseids. Most of you, I think, use Perseids in one way or another, and so I'm just going to kind of point everything out and make sure everyone knows sort of kind of where everything is. And if there's any specific feature or technology you want me to go over or talk about, that would be helpful for me because I can work with that. Really, my role at Perseids is for anyone who's using the technology in the classroom or working on it independently. I'm the guy that you should go to before you bother Bridget, because Bridget's time is important, and it's not that you're not important, it's just that he wants for doing lots of other things. And if it's a question that I can answer, then that's very helpful. So while I'm physically in the room to help you, it could be even more beneficial. So if anyone has anything specific they want me to look at, say now, otherwise I'm just going to start going. And I probably will not take up a full hour, which means we get coffee early, which is clearly good for everyone.
Interrupt for a minute. We're seeing Tim's screen in mirror image. I don't know if anybody else is, but it's a little hard to follow this way.
It's very interesting, but...
Can you see Tim's screen?
We see Tim's screen pointing to share, but to do the presentation on that, but it's just in mirror image. So for other people, I don't know if other people that are on the Hangout are also seeing that. If we're the only okay, because I know.
Yeah.
It's in reverse. Go.
I don't know.
So it's reversed. Is that what's... It's normal for us, and you guys know what our website looks like because obviously it's not particularly.
Is it? Well, maybe we should ask it from Vanessa.
Well, that's what I thought was happening, but then
Or
no one said anything.
Anise, are you there? I think that Vanessa will join us late.
I would say
No, Anise can't see.
Okay. So let's.
Let's stop presenting.
I should be sharing my entire screen.
Ah.
I was here early explicitly to not have technical difficulties. So I'm going to be a little disappointed if there are still some, but whatever. Is that better, Bridget and Marie-Claire? Does it?
yes, it's much better.
Okay.
It's good now? All right. Perfect.
I guess it was worth it. Unfortunately, Tim is muted now. So we see his screen.
Sorry, it was my fault. It was my fault. Now, yeah.
Okay.
Say that again.
I was just talking about how one logs in because it's such a complicated process. And just to sort of field the room a little bit, how many people are actually using Perseids in their classroom type settings on one level or another? I know you are because we talked about it over there. You're not. Okay. So, okay, you are. I mean.
We used it when we
you used it before. Yeah. So what I'm managing to get is most of you are basically using it for either Arethusa or Alpheus, and then just sort of bailing as soon as possible. Yeah, that's sort of what I want. So yes, Greg.
So I would like not to bail. I would like to use it for the named entities with Thucydides also.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good. Thank you for not bailing as soon as possible. Yeah, so I'm going to go through some of the review processes, how these kind of things work. Osama, you were using it too for the training as well. Yes. Yeah. I'm just checking. I want to make sure. I want to see where we are and see what kind of help I can So this is your main splash page, or your main page, which has all of your publications. You can see I'm working on tons of things at once. And at the bottom you have a newsfeed, and you have the pages that you're editing that are working under different boards. Now, most of Perseus is organized into boards and communities, which are for review and submission, which is sort of the part that you're not using if you're just using it for the tree banks and things like that. And that's sort of just an effective way to submit these kind of publications, have them edited by specific people, and then return them back to the people so they can continue to edit them. It's sort of a looping revision process. From this main page, you can produce a wide array of publications. It's mostly, well, actually, I'm going to start with the miscellany because, oh, not miscellany. What did I want to do? Yeah, I wanted to do some inscription annotation because that's an interesting tool, and Marie Claire mentioned. No, it's so. This is going to work. Maybe I'm doing it wrong. That's kind of slow. Where is it? All right. Well. Okay, so I can't get the image citation tool to work, but trust me that it does. When you're doing it correctly. So from the true bank annotation, most of you are probably familiar with this. You can input plain text in this space right here, which is probably what a lot of you have been doing. You can also pull from a couple of preloaded texts down here. You can also upload XML files that have been set up to do tree banking right from the bottom. Over here, which was something that actually came up in the tree banking discussion upstairs, was the use of different types of tag sets. We have a few that are preloaded, but there are some that can be used by the system that aren't preloaded, not most importantly, but one of the ones we talked about upstairs was Harrington's tag set, Matthew Harrington's tag set, which you can do just a quick tiny edit in the XML and then you'll have access to his tags in a slightly different way if you want to do that. So if you want to use a different set of tags in the trees, it's not impossible, and it is something that we can support, at least eventually. And switching back and forth between the different tags does not cause any problems. I double checked that this morning. Because you'll see here on this sentence, which is barely edited at all, I annotated it with the Harrington tag, nominative subject, but I switched it back to the ancient Greek Latin penalty. Now, they're not interchangeable tag sets. Don't let that confuse you that we have that capability yet. We're currently working on it, which is at least how we work on it too with his tags. So we don't have, it is not that the system knows that the nominative subject tag equates to a subject tag. It does not know. It just knows that there are two sets of tags, and it recognizes that that tag exists, but doesn't have any actual meaning to affix them. Is that clear to everyone who might be interested in that?
Well, actually, we shouldn't intermingle them.
No, you shouldn't intermingle. Actually, you should not do what I am showing you right now. You should not do that. But I am showing you that it does not explode if you do that accidentally, which is important. You can see the alignment editor, which we all worked with this morning to work with some Persian. Again, talking about plain text, or you can search for text that have been uploaded into the system already. Wide array of languages to select from, and the tool itself, as you all remember, is fairly easy. It's basically just point and click and point and click and move back and forth, and it's fairly accessible. One of the problems, and I wanted to talk about this before we actually moved on, if anyone is considering using this in a classroom, is some people like to use this as a means for students creating translations. Rather than taking two existing documents and aligning them, they like to have students do their written form of translation and input it here and then align it. That, while very helpful from a pedagogical standpoint, the tool itself doesn't particularly like that, because if you get halfway through your translation, aligning it, and you realize that you spelled a word wrong or that you want to change something, you have to start over entirely. You have to go back, you have to re-edit, you have to go into the XML, you have to change the words specifically around, and then you lose everything and have to start over. And this is actually a complaint that I've gotten from a lot of students that have been doing this kind of project and then gone, well, what do you mean I have to start over entirely? It's 56 hours. I go, well, it sucks. So it's kind of, this is a problem. This is a very helpful tool and it's very good for certain things, but that is one of the things where this could be a problem, and we don't really have a easy way to fix it.
At what point in the process does it lock it in like that?
So basically, as soon as you start, it starts locking it in, because if you change letters, it starts changing the ID to the words. So it doesn't like swapping around. Like if you were clever about it, you could probably do it without losing all of your data. But if you're a stressed undergrad, you can't be clever about it. If you're a stressed undergrad, and so there's an amount that gets lost. And it's really not that it's lost. It's just good to start it. The old file is still there, and you keep going with your incorrect translation, but it's fundamentally incorrect. You know that it's incorrect. And this is sort of, the problem is compounded because the process of aligning is such a helpful process for looking at your own translation and realizing the mistakes you made. So you're more likely to see your own mistakes in this environment, and then you're going to notice them, and then you want to change them, and then you have to loop them. So it is one of the problems. Not trying to say that everything's perfect, but it is very, very helpful for very specific situations. If you have a good, solid translation already, and you want to prove, sort of make concrete attestations of your choices, it's very good.
Could we make that a desideratum for the development thing, that it goes into some sort of cache or some sort of intermediate area so students can work on it and then submit it for some sort of formal making process?
I have no idea.
Because I think what you're saying is very compelling about this process, and if there's something that we can do computationally to make that possible, it seems like that would be a win.
Can I? Yes.
Yes.
So a few points here. This is one of the most challenges and opportunities that come up when you reuse a tool for a purpose other than its original intent. This tool, the Alpheus Translation Alignment Editor, was designed actually originally to correct automatically aligned translations. And in the process of making use of this tool, it became sort of its use in a pedagogical context was not part of the original intent in its design, but it became clear that it was very useful in a pedagogical context, and also for creating these annotations as sort of small micro publications, the translation alignments themselves. There are a number of different ways that we could address the problem that Tim is raising. It has come up over and over again, and the reason that we haven't fixed it is that this particular tool wasn't designed for working with texts that are in an editing state. We have plans to move this, or to put a version of this in the Arethusa tool, which would allow us to much more easily incorporate changes, and that was actually one of the driving factors behind the design of Arethusa, was to enable working on annotations of a variety of sorts, multiple types at the same time, as well as on texts that are in progress. So we definitely have plans to address what he's talking about, but we probably won't do it in this specific tool, which was not designed for that purpose.
Thank you.
Always happy to have Bridget clarify.
And thanks in advance for the new tool,
Yep.
whatever it is, wherever it is.
What is the projected timeline for that? And you've got a million things to do, so that always is a stressful question. But
well, I would hope that in this next, we're at the beginning of this 2 years of funding for work on Perseids and Arethusa, and I would hope that at the end of that we've addressed this in some way. But I can't promise at the end of 2 years.
You had a
I wanted to add something rather than a question. I noticed when I was working with Alpheus that if you align several sentences and you spot a mistake in a sentence you already aligned, for example, you have already aligned 3 sentences and you spot a mistake in the first sentence, you can edit the XML and the other sentence won't be affected.
Yes.
If you
that does work.
change something in the first one. unless, of course, you align something from the third sentence to the first sentence.
That's
But only the word IDs of the...
Yeah, but it's only the word IDs that become
underlying is always our mitigation strategy for all of this. With the tree bank data, with everything we're doing, we're always making the raw data available for editing. So it is particularly painful for the alignments sometimes, especially if you want to change. We've addressed this in the tree bank, where if you add or remove words, we've implemented functionality that the XML will automatically be adjusted, the identifiers and that sort of thing in the XML will be adjusted. It's trickier to do in the translation XML, which is why we haven't implemented an automatic solution yet, just because it takes more time. But it is always possible to go back, and that is always our mitigation strategy, to always make the raw data available.
I don't know, Marcel, I don't know how you're going to make it here in Germany if you actually look at the XML. You're supposed to hide behind a portal and let other people do that work for you. It's way too much curiosity.
Well, this is actually, I think, one of the reasons that this is, you know, a very common complaint. It's not just because it's particularly tricky, but because this is usually one of the first tools on Perseids that we at Tufts expose people to, because it is so simple and it is so user-friendly. And so the user group you have that's using it is absolutely terrified of pointed brackets. And so the idea of, oh yeah, just go in and fix it, or even look at it, just scares them. And it's graded and it's due in 2 days because obviously they didn't do it on time. I have very negative. It's fine. And so it's a combination. So you have a lot of people who are quite scared and aren't quite comfortable enough with what's happening behind the scenes, so that this very simple, accessible tool causes this problem. The real fix is to just tell them to write their translation out first and go over it a second time and then align it. That's the real fix, is just do the extra legwork beforehand and everything works out great.
Well, you could make it, you could actually try to turn the bug into a feature and say, first, you're going to have you're going to write your translation yourself. Then it'll be fixed. Then you get the first shot at grading it.
Yeah.
And you can't change it.
Yeah.
And then someone else will come in and see what you caught.
Well, that's sort of similar to what Scarlett's doing with tree bank experts, having people tree bank their own sentences, where they get halfway through making the tree and then they go, oh, wait, this is wrong.
But you know, I had all my Homer class last spring. I made everybody give me, for their final exam, aligned translations. And I didn't hear about it. This must have happened to people.
Yes, you didn't hear about it, but I heard it.
So this is really interesting. It never actually got to me.
It doesn't get to you. It's part of how it works.
So this is completely, it's like, really? Okay, so...
This is our job with the groundlings. We run interference. But yes, I did have people come to me specifically, actually, about your home.
Okay, well...
Say, this was a problem that we faced. We fixed it, but it caused extra work and extra time and extra effort. And I mean, you were dealing with more competent students at that point, so it wasn't as much of a, oh god, the world's exploding, but it was a complaint that people did talk to me about when I first started.
There are good Thai texts, Arabic, I mean, for the translation of Greek texts. Because now there are only the one I'm working on Ars Poetica, I mean, the Arabic translation.
You mean preloaded?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's just, there's a repository of preloaded stuff, and we just are updating it, but it takes time. And we slowly work towards it.
We still have a sort of, if I understand it, and Bridget will correct me, we started putting things into Perseids, then we started putting things into the new repository that Thibaut built, and they're not quite, we're trying to get them in sync. Ultimately, if you run them through our CTS checking environment at Hook, they'll end up in Perseids, but that's not quite been brought, so that's the deal. So I think, Usama, if you can get your stuff past Thibaut's work, we'll be able to get it into Perseids and things will be a lot smoother.
That's correct. Everything in Perseids requires CTS compliant texts, and we started Perseids before we had a workflow for really transitioning the Perseids text to CTS compliance in a scalable way. Now with Hook and Thibaut's work, we have that workflow, and if you want to make a text available in Perseids, all you have to do is make sure it's CTS compliant. The easiest way is to use the workflow we have set up for that. But eventually, we will, in the new year, we will have, as things come online and pass the tests in Hook, they'll be added automatically to Perseids. We just have a little catch-up work to do on the Perseids side now that the workflow is in place.
But yes, if you want to talk about that, that's maybe. Or is everyone good with the discussion on alignments? Because now I'm going to move on to tree ranking, unless there's something else. Okay. So this is a little trick for tree banking that came up during the talk yesterday. I don't remember where it is. Where it is here. So this is our blog. Most people don't even know we have a blog. But I try to maintain it, and I try to keep useful things on the blog, which is sort of my point. And there is currently things are getting moved around, but this instructions box right here, which should contain basically anything anyone has ever written to try and teach their students or other people how to use any tools on Perseids. And it should be helpful, at least as a starting off point. And I kind of wish Harry was here, because there was a conversation yesterday about how there are no instructions for alignment. And lo and behold, there are not instructions for alignment in our blog. There is just a link to an old description for an Iliad class, which I can only assume is probably Greg's at some point. And the workflow is outdated, and it doesn't particularly make sense, and isn't helpful. And so I guess I'll go to try and work with Harry to see if we can get something actually up to date and relevant there to help people that are trying to start out with alignments.
Actually, can I bring up one other desideratum with alignments? And for good reason, Tariq is upstairs in the Arabic and Persian workshop, but he's brought back to life the work on generating alignments automatically between texts. So it would really be great if we could actually, if he could help us, create a library where we have millions of words aligned, so we can go back as a natural thing to start with the automatic alignments for text and translations that are in Perseids. Because that would really galvanize a lot. And it's been 5 years that we haven't really made any progress, with our aligned corporate, central as they are.
Yeah. So, Greg, just to note, if we have automatic alignments, we can load them for people to start from the existing alignment. Marie Claire even used one of the ones already. So the design behind Perseids would allow loading of the data that if Tariq is working on improving it, and using that then as the starting point for alignment.
Translations, but a substantial number of additional English translations that are sitting around waiting for post-processing. We also have millions of words of older but public domain French translations that are available, that a little bit of which is in CTS, and we have a lot of German as well, and some Italian. So we have materials, they're all older, but there are things that can be automatically aligned and that are there for fiddling with. People want to work on it.
And also, I talked to him also about the Arabic, but I don't think that the file is very advanced or CTS compiled. So he told me just tell me where is the file, and I could also make the alignment between the translation.
So I think that it would be. I had a conversation with people at Jamiat al-Qahira about opening up some of the translations they were providing. I don't think it went all the way. It didn't happen. I think the key is that people just have to understand and think through the scary thing of a CC license. Yeah. Once you put it on a CC license, then people can update it. But if we can get any of these Arabic translations into a full Alpheus-like environment where we can link it to the Greek and link it to a dictionary, it's going to be incredibly useful.
Yeah, the Tarek told me this. I have identified also the old translation, which is now in the public domain. For example, Taha Hussein has translated from the French. I think now Taha is not in the copyright, so maybe we could do something with this.
So I think we want to get the material in there for the Arabic speakers to sort of make the connection Greek, Arabic, and it becomes real when you see your own language.
But yeah, I was trying to show the comparison tool that allows you to look at two tree banks in Arethusa. Produces a lot of useful stuff, particularly if you're working with tree banks.
Hi, Matthew. So we have Matthew Harrington there. So hi, Matthew.
Hi. Yeah, it was something that I talked about in my talk earlier, which would allow you to actually look at two tree banks and create comparison information between them, which is fairly helpful for different kinds of structures and ideas. But really, now this kind of got away from me because they're starting to become a longer discussion on alignment and things like that. But if anyone wants to look at anything specific in Perseus, wants to look at a specific workflow, I'm very happy to sit here and help you deal with it. Because sometimes part of the problem is not really knowing how to get there. Yeah. And that's my job. That's what I'm here for, to help you get there. So really, I'm on the same continent as you. It might not happen in the future. It might not happen soon. So, so questions, comments, concerns, whatever.
So this last tool can be found.
Yes.
There.
So the tool. So there's a. I think this is an outdated version of the link. I know where another one lives on GitHub, and I will update the blog when I get home. Okay. Or back down. Okay. There's also a link to a tool designed by Giuseppe right above that, which should be right here. Which should occur. This doesn't create the visual comparison in Arethusa, but it does give you a lot of comparison data, which Giuseppe does.
Which is more.
But it's the visual comparison in Arethusa is often very helpful if you're dealing, particularly since some people haven't been using dependency tags and are really just trying to use. Okay. That's all right. Since some people aren't using dependency tags and are really just looking at the structure, having something that visually compares the structure is very good.
Yeah, and there's one way to get that. So there's a different, and some of them are easier than others. You don't always you can go through the service that Tim was going to point you at, but you can also go there directly if you know the files that you want to compare visually.
Because I updated this from a while ago when you first sent this to me, and I haven't updated it since. But yes, I know that is good. Yeah. So any other specifics in the site you want me to point at? Problems, things like that.
Well, for example, I'm just trying to annotate the Bulgarian translation of the first line of the Iliad.
Sure.
And here we have in the Bulgarian text a word which does not correspond to anything in the Greek text, and I have to point this to this and this, and in the middle there is an interpolated word.
So first of all, you don't need to include the interpolated word in the middle in the link. So you could just grab. Yeah, so let's assume that that's correct. You can ignore that word that doesn't actually correspond, or you can try to find sort of the thing in the Greek that it's trying to convey or transfer.
Yeah.
Which is it's sort of two different approaches to alignment. Is do you go as literally as possible, or do you actually try and say, well, you know, this word right here in English is used to signify the past tense, so it's sort of technically the actual verb, so we include it in that. Or, you know, the Greek is including the subject in itself and doesn't actually have a pronoun, but there's a pronoun in this language, so on and so forth. And that's, again, that's sort of a matter of a sliding scale.
Yeah, but technically it's possible, it's not.
Yeah. Questions, comments, coffee?
CCC. Well, QCC.
Whatever. Yeah.
So one thing I always, when I look at this and it says make an addition, make something, and I just want to look at it. Be nice if I could just see something, if there's a browse mode or an obvious way to look at you know, a text.
A text.
And without creating a new, forking something off, you know. I just find it's a little bit, you have to understand a fair amount about what's going on.
Yeah. And that is, again, part of why I'm paid. Because you do have to actually understand what's going on and know where to look. But if you just wanted to look at a text, I would just point you to Perseus. Because if you just wanted to look at, you know, page 4, I'd just say, go Perseus down here. But, yeah, I understand the problem you're talking about, where there is sort of a learning curve, and you need someone to help you get to where you want to be, and you have to sort of know the right questions to ask to find your way to where you're actually doing something.
I'm like hesitant to interject because I seem to leave you all silent after I speak. But just to add to that, one, we have plans in this round to have a web designer hired to help us make working with the Perseid system better. But Perseids and this is an editing platform, not a browsing platform, but it's designed to integrate with a browsing or reading platform. And so, Greg, that's why I've been experimenting a little bit with Nemo as one entry point into doing work in Perseids, because really that little drop down where you select text to work with and things, those were not designed to be used for discovery, but rather as if you knew already what you wanted to work on. I had always hoped Perseus or the Perseus catalog would be the discovery point for working in Perseids. It may be that we use Nemo first as that approach, but I do agree we need that. It's just that's not what Perseids, this particular interface and this particular tool, is designed to be. It's designed to be something that a browsing or reading interface could connect to.
I agree.
Okay.
Yes.
So that we don't leave the room silent and make Bridget feel awkward. I agree. But yes, so any other statements, questions, any other specifics that you might like me to go over so that when you return to your courses you know a little more about it?
So I just want to go back to that and say that sort of intuitively, if I understand, it'd be nice if we shift more and more into Nemo, or descendant of Nemo, which is going to be turned into Perseus 5.0. And then when you're looking at a text, you might say, I want to tree bank it, I want to align it, I want to do X, Y, and Z. And you could have this other view we've got now, but that's when you're going, you're going in the back door behind the stage and looking at all the wires and stuff.
That is very true.
Okay, perfect. That makes sense.
Okay, all right. Coffee.
Yes. Is something on your mind? I don't know.
I would like coffee. I don't know about you. The room feels like it wants coffee. There's sort of not a lot of pep going on. So I'm getting that vibe.
Are we going to have a time to talk about how we might do the named entity stuff if we wanted to do it? So
You mean
the hypothesis.
or everyone?
Me, like, in one example would be my class, my Thucydides class at
You want to
Tufts.
do names entities?
Why not? I want another cost benefit. I mean, how hard it's going to be. I assume you've done it enough, so.
Well, Greg, this is why I wanted you to send me an email saying what are the things you want to do in your Thucydides class.
Well, I
give
get
you those kind of.
Well, I think we should. The cost benefit is worth talking about. So everybody wants to tag names.
Yeah.
So, and we know it can be done. We know though it was. I've watched you, Bridget, like getting ready to make this happen in the first instance. So it didn't happen automatically, and so there's always going to be friction or some cost getting another case going. I want to understand what that is. Ideally, we would include names in our Thucydides class right away, but not if it's going to be a huge disruption and it's not going to, it's going to be a big issue. So that's the.
Well, so Greg, do you want me to address this here, or is this just a point you want to raise and talk about later? I guess you want me to answer it now. There are two things with with what we did with the Smiths, for example, we had identifiers for all of those people because the Smiths gave us the identifiers. So one question would be for Thucydides whether all of the people that you want to identify have stable identifiers for them already, or if you're wanting as part of that process to create identifiers. So that's one thing. And then in terms of the social networks, what I will say that we learned from the hypothesis, the 2 rounds of the hypothesis tool, is that this is not a scalable workflow to produce error-free data, because really you need the visualization to know if you've done the network correctly. What we found is that even with very precise instructions to the students to say, you know, this is the subject, you have to use this is the subject and this is the object, they got the relationships backward, and you really can't review that in a scalable way unless you can visualize it while you're reviewing it. Right now the visualization is a post-production step, which can be done mostly automatically if you adhere to the models that we've come up with now, but and it's not a huge effort to add another text for this if you want to adhere to the models we have. But those are the 2 caveats I would say, is that you need something for them to identify their people as. If we don't have those, I don't have an easy way right now to incorporate new identities into the workflow. And the networks, you really need a tool that you can visualize as you're going, which we don't have yet, but which we might use to build on our integration with Berkeley Prosopography Services to support. But that won't be for Thucydides in the spring.
I had I had at least one, I think maybe 2 indices of Thucydides that are in TEI XML with the citations all tagged in a consistent format. They're not CTS-URNs yet. But if I turn that into, I have that kind of data, which is basically what Smith is. Would I be able to load that in and have the issue of, you know, one thing is I want to have people say this, Characles 2 in this index is Characles 1 in that index, for example, making links between entities. And well, maybe this is too complicated. This is a
specific.
Well, it's specific in this case, but the index, multiple index thing is a very generic problem.
This is what I'm doing for analysis. I have the same problem.
So this is okay. Well, I think this sounds like a syllabus discussion.
Yes. Okay, so we have a coffee now.
Well, thank you for your attention.
Yes. Thank you. Okay, questions or coffee?
Well, there was questions sort of the whole time.
Okay.
Out of the point.
Okay, so I don't know, questions or?
Just Bridget and very clear. Just great.
Yes, they will join us again at 4:45. So okay, maybe we have the coffee now in Leipzig. We welcome back to our last session of SunoikisisDC digital class. Now we start this meeting for developing the syllabus, our big mission. And we have guests. Well, we have Anise from Brazil, from yesterday. We have Irina Garcia from Georgia. Then Vanessa Gorman from Nebraska. And I thought they can... And Matthew, sorry, yes, he was. And Matthew Harrington from Tufts University, of course. So I can start with some slides before. Okay, so I share my screen. Okay, a few information about what we are going to do now. So as you know, one of the goals, the main goal of this planning seminar is to develop a syllabus together for next semester, for what we call the summer semester 2016 or spring semester 2016. So today we should talk about, well, course topics, and I have a list, and we represent this room different topics in digital humanities and in digital classics, then learning tasks for our students, PERSIX functionalities. We have seen them with the team, with Bridget and Marie-Claire. Sources and resources, what we have. We have seen in these 2 days how many resources we have, how many tools, digital tools we have, and how many different sources we are working with in this big field of digital classics and going beyond classics. How to build an e-portfolio, learning environments, and then the tricky thing, the academic calendar. Today, yes, we have to develop the syllabus and to schedule days for our common sessions. Well, last year we decided to start with our first SunoikisisDC Classics course with a specific course topic, which was the Penteconteti and the Peloponnesian War, as I told you. So we started with this, and with the sources connected to this event, Greek and Latin sources and other tools, like collections of sources or commentaries about this event. And we produced different kinds of data with these sources, and you can find them in GitHub. This year, for next semester, we prefer to work not on a specific topic within classics, but to focus on the technologies, on the tools we have. Here I'm quoting Gabriel Godard. This is your description of the course that you will have, you will teach in the Institute of Classical Studies in London when you will join SunoikisisDC. So the idea, yes, is to teach technical approaches concerning digital classes. And here we have a description of what we would like to do. So to introduce students to a range of technical approaches concerning digital classics, XML, epilogue, preventing, linguistic annotation, translation alignment, text-to-use presentation, working with objects and not only with inscriptions but also with monuments, archaeology, and then manuscripts and other things. So this is the idea, so to develop a syllabus with different groups of common sessions focused on these technical approaches, so that other students from other institutions can learn to use these tools for their, for example, Kevin Morel was mentioning before the course on Euripides. The students participating in your course on Euripides can join us or can follow these common sessions and learn how to use these tools, and, for example, annotating Euripides, translating the text of Euripides, and so on. So this is the idea, to provide online common sessions for helping people to learn how to use these tools. Yes, learning tasks. Well, here we have a list, a kind of list of learning tasks for our students. Of course, taking morphology of syntax, aligning translations, creating new aligned translations, annotating quotation and text reuses, learn how to produce short commentaries. We can do that in PERSIX, working with named entities, people and places, annotating social and geospatial relationships, events, etc. So this is the first tentative list of what we can do. And so we have specific tools for that, and we can work with many different sources in many different languages. PERSIX functionalities, well, team described that before the coffee break, so I don't need to focus on this. Well, two big questions. How do we evaluate data? how do we show disseminate data and results? This is a big question nowadays, not only for teaching, but also for producing research. We need to see how we can evaluate this data. I don't have an answer yet, but we are working a lot on this, and how can we disseminate this data, not only in SunoikisIS, but for many other activities. Well, for SunoikisIS, but not only for SunoikisIS Digital Classics, we use GitHub for putting data, for disseminating them. Then we have, at the CHS, we have this journal for SunoikisIS. This is another opportunity so for students to produce also papers describing the data they have produced and publish these papers. For example, here in Leipzig, Marcel has been working on the Digital Hill, and we're going to publish a paper in the Digital Classics online journal describing the data. So we have data in GitHub, and we are going to write, we have a paper, we are going to publish it describing this data. So these are possibilities. And there is also the SunoikisIS Undergraduate Research Journal, which is another excellent resource for publishing and disseminating data produced by the students. I don't know, Ken, if you want to say something about this journal, but...
Sure. This is this journal is part of a sort of vertically integrated curriculum that SunoikisIS orchestrates. How it works is that students who participate in the courses in the fall are a part of how that works in the courses. That one of the things they have to do is they have to develop an abstract for a research project that they then that is then vetted and evaluated by all of the participating faculty members. And students whose abstracts are selected then develop a paper that is then workshopped in the spring at the Center for Hellenic Studies, and the outcome of that then goes into the journal. And so the editorial work of the journal is done by the mentors of the students that submitted. So we don't have a separate editorial. We have Lana Coley and Alan Marbury orchestrate and coordinate this thing, but they draw on the mentors, the faculty members of the students who submit the material. They actually provide the editorial oversight for this sort of thing. It is, however, I mean, it's there with that in mind. However, any student is welcome to submit an abstract on that particular topic and participate in the workshopping process, as well as publishing the work in the journal. Right? So we don't solicit just open papers for publication. They go through a workshopping process. But any student from anywhere in the world is welcome to submit an abstract for that workshopping thing. The topics this year are going to be sort of our Neronian literature and Plato's and Plato, with an emphasis on Alcibiades. Next year it will be Roman literature from the Flavian period, from 70 BCE to 180 or so, up through Marcus Aurelius or thereabouts. And on the Greek side it will be Hellenistic literature. So if you have students that are working on those topics, you can go and you can submit an abstract and participate in the workshopping process at the center, and then have the material. It's really meant to provide the kind of structure for developing research from really the beginning to the end product, and to sort of introduce students to scholarly methodologies, as well as some of the background aspects of electronic publication.
Okay, thank you. So this is an opportunity. Then here in Leipzig we have the Digital Classics online journal, and then You may have other resources. For example, yesterday Maria and Timo showed us the paper they have published in Folium Classroom in Finnish. It is a report of last planning seminar, but this is another possibility for disseminating information and results about what we are doing. Well, learning environments, as I said, so we are using Perseus, and team has shown us functionalities, GitHub for collecting data, and then we have many other tools. You can find the links in our page in GitHub, so we don't have to focus on them now. Okay, the academic calendar. So if you go to GitHub, to this URL, SunoikisisDC 2016, we have a Google Doc, okay, and you can open it, and then in the meantime I see if people, I stop screen sharing for a while. So are there any questions? Vanessa, Irene, Matthew, Anise? Do you have any questions? Or oh, Michelle. We have also Michelle Brunet. Hi, Michelle.
So, Monica, are these presentations all going to come through Hangouts? Is that the idea? Lost her completely.
Hi.
Are you there, Monica?
Yes, I'm sorry, Vanessa. I have to mute myself, otherwise there is an echo.
So the question is, are these presentations that we're doing all going to be done through Hangouts? Is that the idea?
Yes, this is the idea. So today, the goal is to have a list of common sessions. By common sessions, yes, we mean presentations online via Google Hangout. We have presentations each week, once per week, and by common sessions we mean, well, yes, teaching to use the tools, but also discussing with students and with the participants.
Will they then be, the presentations be put somewhere where we can access them after the fact?
Yes, because we broadcast these common sessions, so and they are we put them online. You can see the presentations of last semester in GitHub. You have a repository for Sunoikis Digital Classics 2015, where you have the broadcast of each common session with the slides, and then also data produced by the students.
The URL to the GitHub, the documents on GitHub.
You can, okay, so hi Neven, we have also Neven, so I share again the screen, and I go back to, wait a minute, okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, this, okay, here you can see, oops, sorry. Okay, this is, okay, a page for SunoikisisDC 2016. So first, let's start with this. So here we have the main page in GitHub for Sunoikis Digital Classics. We have here SunoikisisDC, an overview of the program. SunoikisisDC 2015, you have the links to the resources produced last semester. Well, the syllabus, then the program of the planning seminar, the syllabus, our Google Plus community, the broadcast of each common session, slides, and then also the wiki, where you have a description of what each institution produced last year. And now we can go back. We have a new repository for 2016. As for now, we have only the link to the, of course, to the program of this planning seminar. Then we have a link to a Google Doc where we can write our syllabus. And finally, the wiki. As for now, we have only an overview of SunoikisisDC 2016. But I would like you to add, not today, not now, of course, a new page. Here you can add a new page within this wiki about your work, about your participation in Sunoikis, about your institution. This means nothing special in the sense that you can describe what you're doing with your students or in your research and the data that you are producing for Sunoikis. To have an idea, you can see the data produced for Sunoikis 2015. But now we can focus on the Google Doc. Okay, we have this Google Doc. Okay, well, we have a list of the people participating, a course description. So, here I'm quoting you in the course description because I think it's perfect. So I discussed with Gavin Bodar because he's starting this course and he's participating in Sunoikis, so I think that this is a good course description. And then we have a tentative list of course topics we can discuss about that, and then the calendar. Okay. Here we have to decide. I suggest to have a common session each week on Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Leipzig time. If it works, I know that now this is a problem because everyone has many things to do and has other programs and activities. This is a suggestion. And then, last year we started the semester in April, following the Leipzig academic calendar, and we had 12 weeks. Now, in order to allow people with different academic calendars, we decided to start at the beginning of February. If we have our common sessions on Wednesday, we start on February the 3rd. Through July the 6th, if I remember correctly. Yes, and we have 23 weeks. I see. Yes.
Real semester.
Please.
Yes. The word.
Monica, can I?
Yes.
I just want to. I've been thinking for a long time about how what we're doing on the Sunoikis, on the other side of the Atlantic might fit into this. And let me just take, if I may, just a couple of minutes to tell you about what we're doing there and how I see what you are doing here fitting into that. And in describing this, I want you to think of this as an open invitation to participate in what we're doing. Because what we do is we participate in a way that would allow for any institution in any location on the planet to actually participate with us. So so at the center, we have an initiative in collaboration with the Council of Independent Colleges. This is, for those of you who are interested, it's www.cic.org. And you will see under there, under one of their, I think it's under meetings and events, you will see under faculty development, Ancient Greece in the Modern College Classroom. We run a workshop at the center in July, and faculty members from the 600 or so institutions that constitute the Council of Independent Colleges can participate in this workshop. And the workshop is for both classicists and non-classicists. And it's on a particular topic each year. This last summer, our topic was sort of the song culture of Athenian drama, focusing on Euripides. This coming summer, it will be on Herodotus. And what participants come there for a week, we read and we talk about, we learn about Euripides, for example, last summer. And then this coming semester, participants who are interested are going to participate in an interinstitutional online course on Euripides. And the same thing will happen a year from this spring on Herodotus. That course runs for 12 weeks, beginning almost exactly the same time you are in February, and running through the middle of April. And in that 5 weeks, or in that 12-week period, we're going to look at, read, and examine, and discuss 5 plays of Euripides. For those of you who don't know the American system so well, let me just say that there will be some students in this course on Euripides who are studying Greek, but the vast majority will be students that know no Greek at all, and that they are participating in this course as a part of their requirements for graduation, right, which is common in Europe, in the American university system. Even students who study chemistry and physics and biology and economics, they will have to take a certain number of courses in the humanities and in literature and so on, and this is a course that would fulfill those requirements. So we will have the vast majority of these students will not be Greek students. But that doesn't mean that we can't incorporate some very advanced digital techniques to move them closer into an understanding of the relationship between the translations that they work with and the underlying Greek texts. So we hope that we intend to at least partially integrate some of the tools that we've been talking about and that you all have developed into that sort of course. Let me also add that there are about, I think, 7 or 8 institutions that will be participating in this program. One group of participants will hopefully come from non-traditional students. That is, these are people who are just interested in it, in the topic, who are not going to a college or university, not currently enrolled. And these are participants that come out of the massive online open course offered by Greg Nodge at the Center on the Greek hero. There's a very active group of people that have taken this course, sometimes multiple times, who will be taking the course with us on Euripides this coming spring. And there's no reason why we couldn't accommodate other groups of students from anywhere on Earth, who want to also participate in that, including Greek students who want to use the discussions on more general topics and in one mode and then participate in the course in their own sort of local thing, doing all kinds of things having to do with the language itself. So it's the idea, which reflects the design of all of the Sunoikis projects, at least in the United States. It's modular. Students can if you want to just beam in and participate for 2 weeks on one play, that's possible. If you want to use the material out of this in a completely different course, maybe on a survey of Greek literature, that's entirely possible. There are no restrictions on your ability to use or participate in this course. So we're looking at ways of incorporating this, and we're looking at ways to collaborate with anyone who wants to work within this context. So we're looking at that. At Rhodes College, where I'm teaching, I will also be doing a course on Suetonius. And we will be doing some tree banking. This is an advanced course on Suetonius, on Latin literature. We'll be doing some tree banking, and I want to incorporate, and maybe some other things, text alignment and other things. I want to incorporate that in my classes as well. And then we also have students in the second semester Greek course that will also be learning and using some of these tools. So we want to incorporate the things that you are going to line up within each one of those different contexts to whatever extent we can. and certainly invite anyone who wants to participate with us in the Euripides course in translation to contact me and the course directors and the other faculty about participating. I'd be happy to share the information. It's going to be a really interesting course. We're mapping it onto the conventions of Athenian democracy. So all of the students in the class, projected to be about 150, will be allocated into tribes, okay? And they will be competing with each other for garlands and playoffs through their contributions to the course. We're going to be looking specifically at the Trojan War plays and a set of Trojan War plays because the previous two seminars and courses dealt with the Iliad and the Odyssey, and now we're doing Euripides, so we're doing the Trojan versions, the Euripidean versions of the Trojan War this time, and then of course we'll be looking at Herodotus the following year, and probably Sophocles the following year. Our goal is to map out now a long-term schedule of topics so that we can begin developing in advance and integrating these experiences, both vertically on individual campuses and longitudinally for students to participate more. Thank you for your time.
No.
So that's what we're going to do. So I'm very much interested in seeing how you are going to discuss and present these various tools so that I can get my students to beam in and learn about them so that we can adapt them and incorporate them into our course.
Of course, the thing is that we can't be online together at the same time because if possible, of course. But we have the tools for putting things online, common sessions, videos, and data. Sharing them, using them for different courses, for different needs. So that's the goal of Sunoikis Digital Classics, putting these tools online, how we can use them for different purposes. And in the United States, you can have one course together because you have the same academic calendar in the fall. Because if I am right, you have the break in the same week also, so that's why it works.
We do have, I mean, we have approximate alignment in the spring as well. Certainly, it's much more closely aligned than the sort of European context. And we work around. It's a 12-week schedule, but there are really 10 weeks of collaborative work because we have to work around a period in the middle of the spring where there are spring breaks are distributed. Yeah. So we have a much more manageable. I always thought it was an impossibly complex thing, but then when I learned about what you all do over here, I'm thinking, it's the model of simplicity and transparency. So I'm no longer ever going to complain about spring semesters in the United States.
Well, we are a bit crazy. No, we look for impossible things. No, but we can do that. Last year we could do that, and so this year, so that's the thing. That's why we have. So I go back to the. So I share again the screen, and I go back to the Google Doc. Okay. This is the idea, because we start on February. So after this table, we have a list of different academic calendars of participating institutions with the various descriptions. And so yes, here we have. I can see. So here you can see the different dates. So the idea, so if you agree, we can have this 23 weeks, and we can start with people who start the semester in January. For example, in the UK, Gabby, you told me that you start in January, 2 weeks before. Yes, so we can anticipate that, or we can start on February the 3rd. And then we have the United States, yes.
January 5th. January 5th.
January 5th, okay, 1 month before. And then, yes.
While you're thinking about this, here's something that I would love to see happen, and that is I noticed that we don't have any tree banking of Euripidean plays. And so I would say, wow, wouldn't it be great if, early on, it could be something on tree banking, and maybe we could collectively outsource a tree banking, a Euripidean play or two that then I could use in that class to show tree banking and get students involved. That's one thing that would be great.
Because, sorry, for Euripides you start in January?
We start in the first week of February.
Okay, you start.
And so, but it wouldn't matter. I mean, even if we had just the first 100 lines of something that was done, we could run that. The same thing with aligned translations. It would be terrific at some point over the course of that 12 weeks. If there were a set of modules that were devoted to text alignment, that we could beam in and see what you're doing in terms of text alignment to give students an opportunity to sort of triangulate on different translations, comparing the ones that they're going to be using and the ones that are in Arethusa or whatever environment it's going to be in. That would be that we would want to make use of that. And then, of course, one of the huge things that the students are going to wrestle with is, as Marie Claire was working on her mythology class, is keeping all of these characters straight, because we are going to be using plays that are addressing the same sort of set of traditional narratives, and that social networking facet that we could tie into, where students could understand the relationships of the characters that they're going to encounter in these plays, to be able to keep them straight and understand the relationship from one play to another would be fantastic. So that's my letter to Santa Claus. Yeah. Please, Santa, provide me with 2 or 3 weeks of tree banking, or maybe 4, followed by 3 or 4 weeks of text alignment, followed by 3 or 4 weeks of the social network analysis. And I promise to be a good boy for the whole rest of the year and beyond.
Well, we have many Santas in this room.
Yeah, with Euripides, I've got the Gormans sent me their slides from yesterday. I didn't get to see them. But it's pretty clear they've got really interesting results in the syntactic author identification, which I think is probably going to be much more satisfying than comparable results with the frequency of chi, which is the other technique. Because here you actually, when you look at the damn syntax, I might actually identify something that sounds Euripidean as opposed to these things which are important because they're below your level of noticing. So if we have, and we already see Sophocles and Aeschylus cluster together nicely. So hypothesis, what's Euripides going to look like? Yeah. And how do we, as we increasingly map this out? And we have lots of, there are plenty of translations. There are translations not yet attached to Perseus of Euripides in various languages. It's one of the things we have in Italian, for example. But just help in making these translations compatible with the Greek would be useful, and then if we can do alignment and see how they're dealt with, and also and see and do the intensive comparison of translations is always a good thing.
Yeah.
Yes. And in the where you see course topics, which is tentative, I identified 5 big topics according to your interests, as far as I could see during your presentation. So we can have name entities, text and objects in context, because we have epigraphy, papyrology, but also archaeology, linguistic annotation, of course, then, well, yes, something about annotating quotations and text reuses, and then Persian Arabic. So we have 23 weeks, 5 main big topics, if you agree, of course. This is just a suggestion, and then we can try. So we have to put these things in this table. Topics, well, common session, we will have your name. Of course, as for now, we can say, okay, we start with linguistic annotation, we can have 4 sessions, and then each of you has time to think about a specific presentation. I'm not asking you now a title for your common session, but just to tell me what you want to teach. Name entities, social networking, tree banking, translation alignment, digital epigraphy. So we need to do that now. So, and well, by tutorial we mean the work that you can do at your home institution with your students. This is up to you. So you have the common session, and then during the week with your students, you work on this specific topic. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, let's start. So as far as I see, there is a desideratum for linguistic annotation. As a first, maybe, yeah.
Can I also introduce just another organizational element? Because we have these, you know, it's like the student is meeting each other, you know, at the end of the beginning and end of the day. I'm thinking that the Americans might be told that, or people, Brits, the Anglophones, people with January starters, could be told that their goal, part of their job, is to be ready in April to present as for the students who are starting up at various European places.
Yeah, of course. Common session should involve also student presentations.
So,
for example, you start, Eleni, Gabby, and of course you at TAFS. You can start, and then in April, at the end of your semester, your students can present what they have done during the course. Definitely, yeah.
And Kenny,
I was just going to say, I guess I would like to propose that maybe we work in teams ourselves here. You know, maybe not as individuals, but if there were 1 or 2 others out there that were interested in let me put it this way, I'm a neophyte at most of these things, and so I would want to work with somebody who could, you know, that collaboratively we could come up with something. I would be happy to sort of work on, you know, tree banking one of the plays of Euripides, you know, working on that, maybe reporting with others. I don't feel confident enough that I can, you know, go through that and you know, with the kind of speed and precision and expertise to be able to have something, you know, ready for presentation at a particular time. But I'd be happy to work with a team that was interested in doing a play and contributing to that and working on that together. So I guess I would advocate the possibility of perhaps working as a group or a team of something on some of these projects, some of these things. And I think the same thing could be applied to, you know, the named entities kind of thing, or a line translation or something. I mean, there's a certain amount of work that's going to have to go into this. I may or may not have students that are in a position to do this, because most of the students in these particular courses are going to be working with the text and translation. But I could certainly contribute to some of these things as a student might.
So should we, probably we should make a tentative list of people filling the common sessions according to their final dates of semester.
Yes.
And then the first ones, which are too early for almost everybody, should be dedicated to some sort of tutorial lectures, not presenting the results of things in different domains, probably. Something like that.
So the question is actually, who will be able to engage his or her class into this program? Who I personally am not able to engage my class.
But this is not a problem, Stelios. So, in the sense that, of course, we want to involve students, but if it's not possible,
for that semester it is very difficult.
Yeah. No. But you can present what you are doing, so you can teach a common session, and then you will see. Yes. No. That's why we have different scenarios, because there are people with the courses. They can involve students, other people. For example, my students are computer scientists, so I have students, but they can follow this thing, but not like classicists. So there are many different needs, but we can combine them because we have people. There are other people who don't have courses, I think, in this room, but they can still participate in Sunoikisis, showing what they do, which tools they use. So it's quite flexible. So I understand it can be confusing, I know, but flexibility is not what we are looking for.
And to add something to this, maybe my students will be horrified to speak English. So it's something which is we are non-native speaker being, so I think they could participate, but listening maybe at the carriage after 1, 2, 3 weeks to say something,
Could they do some tree making?
Yeah, this is of course I think
so. What if we did Helen, Euripides Helen? It's got Egypt in it.
Well, Joe, not Joe.
It's all in Egypt, right? I mean, that would be something that might appeal to them. With the idea of having a certain amount of it done, we're going to be doing Helen in our course between March 20th and April 2nd, so that would be, if we could have, that would be, at that point, I would want to be able to present some of our findings, but it would be great to work with some of your students and with you, working on tree banking, Euripides Helen, and see what happens, because it's also got some really interesting geographic references in it, okay, and it's got, some really interesting, how are we going to tag Helen 1 and Helen 2? I mean, how is it? What are we gonna call the Eidolon? What is that? Is that Helen? Or it's all of these really interesting, conceptual concepts that we're going to have to map somehow into the tagging. I think it's a really cool project.
So one thing, Monica and I had a visit from our Egyptological colleagues, and we agreed to take a Theodor Hopfner's collection of sources in Greek and Latin about Egypt, and to see if it's appropriate if it's good enough so we can produce a digitized copy. And they're saying, well, I read Latin 25 years ago. I can't read it anymore. And it's just Greek. It's just quotations of Greek and Latin with nothing. That's all there is. I would wonder. I said, well, why don't we talk to people in Egypt who are interested in Greco-Roman culture? Maybe they would like to work on this and maybe make the Greek and Latin accessible in Arabic as well. And if the work involves tree banking, that's going to help everybody. Yeah. But this might be, I know that was, at the Kissimati Rosara Univa Latinia at the University of Cairo, that was one of their stated foci, was Arabic in, Arabs and the Arabic world, or Egypt in the ancient world. In the Greco-Roman world, so maybe that would give people a real incentive to open up their own cultural heritage as seen by these other guys.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah.
And we had a very. Were you here for the presentation on Coptic?
Sorry.
Were you here for the talk? Were you at the talk on the Coptic tree bank?
No.
Oh, we have now. Again, I don't know where Coptic fits in the mental map of students in Ain Shams, but there's an excellent work being done on Coptic tree banks.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Also, another language of Egyptian cultural heritage.
Yeah. I suppose this will encourage the people to participate. So, yeah.
So make Egyptian culture, the reception of Egypt, more accessible in Arabic. And I'd love to have people everybody collaborating on the tree banking, and then the Egyptians are working on the Arabic translation, and the Americans or whatever, the Germans working on the German. And if they were playing games online, they just go to Google Translate and they make it happen and they figure out how to do it. If they're doing it in class, they might be more resistant. But there are famous case studies of people. You speak Ukrainian, you speak Italian, and you're in the world of Warcraft, and you work together and you get it done.
Yeah, that's challenging. Yeah. Wonderful. Just go for it and see whether they will be able to do it or not, or have courage to engage and see what will the outcome of this. So, yes.
Okay. We need to, so you can't leave this room before. Yes, I'm sorry. Before we have the syllabus.
We have only 13 weeks, so we will not be able to do it.
So maybe you and I will talk about how we want to interact with your students.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll scare a student or two, and we can work on divide the play up and do some tree banking.
Yeah.
Right.
And then your students can start listening to these common sessions in English. I understand, of course. Then maybe next year they can try. Unfortunately, I don't understand Arabic, but we can next year. You can organize a sub-Sunoikisis in Arabic with common sessions, another Arabic Sunoikis digital, something like that. Why not?
Yeah,
For the Arabic-speaking world.
It will be an advantage to have English. I think it will be an advantage for a student to speak in English and to break this wall, So maybe we'll do it, but I have just talked to them and they are saying no, we can. So
but
maybe
they can
when
start listening to. They can start using the tools, producing some data. I can understand. The tools are there. You can help them.
Why don't you have them? The idea is they will participate this first year, and then you will train students next year. The most successful students will teach in Arabic, and that you have enough English to figure out what's going on together. And their English will improve in this way because they'll actually have, it'll be, and no one expects them, to get everything, but we have to have a support mechanism in there where this becomes a target for their English. Their real focus is figuring it out and explaining it in Arabic for everybody else. But I think a few of the people would go for that. And then you get more and more ties going back and forth.
Okay.
Okay, excellent. So we have 1 hour and 20 minutes.
So I think that why don't we if Osama's game, we can present, you and I can present the findings. We don't have to have the students necessarily present the findings if they're not up for it, but we can. So sometime in March, maybe towards the end of March, we'll be ready to go to talk about Helen. Okay.
You can write in the Google Doc.
Oh, okay.
You can start. So the first, the topics, common session. So.
Well, I would why not just have them talk about Ein Schatz? Just say, hello, we're in Egypt, we're studying Greek and Latin.
No, I want to talk to us about maybe actually having, being able to say, here we are in Egypt. This is where Helen was, and this is archaeologists have identified this as her house.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that would be fantastic. That would be great.
Should we have an introductory in the first week,
Yes.
someone to
No, of
say what
course.
we are going to do so we can cover the first week?
No, exactly. So, okay, I can do that if you want, or yes, maybe the first common session I can introduce Sunoikisis. So I put my name here. Oops. Okay, excellent. So we have Euripides, okay. And okay, exactly. Okay, so we have a source, Euripides, Helen, and okay. The focus will be to use this source and produce linguistic annotation through banking. Okay.
We'll have something to say.
Oh no, I'm sure. No.
To show and say.
That's the thing. So remember, we are focusing on digital approaches, digital tools. So that's why in this case we have a source, we have a text, but we are annotating the language. Okay, I can start on February the 3rd with an introduction, of course. Then, Gabby, do you want, or do you prefer, because for those who start, do you want to teach common sessions at the beginning or at the end of your, this is something.
I don't mind. I mean, I can do. I can follow someone's tree banking session and so work with the metrics that I did. But I can do one towards the end of my semester as well with students' projects. I can.
So as far as I see, because we have, okay, we start with March 23, tree banking and Euripides. So when do you finish your semester? I don't remember. Sorry.
April 20th.
April 20. Okay, we have this. Okay, here we can have other sessions about tree banking and linguistic annotation, if you agree, if it's good.
So I can pick one of the weeks, like the March 30th or April 6th, and do the metrics.
Yeah.
And then April 20th, our last day, we can present the project.
Okay. So we can. Student presentation. It's tree banking.
I don't know right now what we're going to have.
Of course, no. I'm not asking you.
Projects, but,
no, I'm not asking you that now. But the idea is to present the student projects on tree banking.
The tree banking metrics, I was thinking what I am doing with the metrics. The student projects, I don't know what they will be on.
No,
I don't know if it's going to be on tree banking. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
The tree banking metrics, I can do them any other time.
So, sorry, okay, tree banking, yeah, I understand. Sorry. Okay, so student presentation, I can see presentation, and
actually, I was interested in the one before, in April the 13th.
Yeah.
Because that would be almost the end of the semester, and that would be the student's presentation of what we will have done at that time about the Odyssey. So we're modeling the corpus for a broader project and another NA in computer science and information technologies. So by that time, I guess we must have done something on named entities, annotation, and translation and alignment. Yes.
On the Odyssey, if I understood
Yes.
correctly. Okay. Okay. And Eleni, for you, the other ranking metrics, do you want to do that in these weeks or before?
I don't mind. Whenever, if someone else wants, I can do it either March 30th or April 6th.
There are other needs in this.
Well, I don't want to say this because I might be volunteering myself. I don't know entirely I'm the most qualified person to do this. But if we are going to have different people working on sort of these different technologies, sort of a basic introductory session might not be the worst idea in the world.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Everyone agrees with me. Everyone was thinking it. No one wanted to say it because they didn't want to volunteer themselves.
Someone just did.
Yeah. No. So I think my thought was if we're going to have a session that's about tree banking European talent, it might make a certain amount of sense to sort of clump things. So if you want to have different presentations about tree banking, maybe March is tree banking month, and then maybe April is like name entities month or something like that. And so you have sort of an introductory session early in the month that is like, this is what tree banking is, this is what we do, things like that.
And I don't know.
I don't want to be that guy, but
yes. You are. Yes.
Can I not be that guy? Just like
No, wait, so we, of course, Giuseppe, of course, but
I don't want to be that
because
guy.
we are working on.
They keep me in the basement for a reason.
Let me know.
Well, I mean, maybe I was considering that there might be, if we were discussing that other people working on tree banking, sharing their experience. Maybe April, I would say, because they didn't tell me, but I would say that April might be okay for them. If we wanna all, I mean, some the people working on tree banking to be.
Could there be at the very beginning of the course?
No, I think that.
But just a minute. Could there be at the very beginning of the course, like, you know, if the major topics are going to be like named entities and tree banking and text alignment, could we have at the very beginning of the course 3 sessions on those topics to introduce what it's all about and talk about the technology, and then you could have presentations of results later on in the course, so that it makes it, in other words, so that people can do things, you know, with the introductions at the very beginning, and then that could spur development, and then we can have results later on. So maybe Giuseppe or somebody could do one on tree banking early in the, maybe on the 10th of February, I don't know, and then have various groups, like we'll report on March 23rd, and there might be some others that want to do it in April or whatever.
I'm sorry, this is entirely my fault.
No. So the only thing is that so I think that there are different kinds of tree banking experience here. So
But it could be just in general. Think of this in terms of, you know, you're talking to now, you know, people at, you know, a dozen or 15 institutions around the world that are interested in doing this. You know, this is why we do this, and this is what we do, and this is what it looks like, and these are some of the interesting things that can happen, as a, you know, sort of a general introduction, a little bit, you know, so then that sets the stage for people to do stuff, and then they can come back and actually do results.
Yeah, I mean, so there are many questions here, in the sense that, okay, again, it depends exactly on what you want to do. Let me explain it and be clear on this point. There are different kinds of tree banking. So, for example, when you start tree banking, usually, I mean, the standard practice is that you have a text that you want to tree bank, you have some deadlines. This is the important point. If for some kind of tree banking, I would say the standard one. And so the first question is, for example, do we have guidelines for, I don't know,
You mean Arabic?
Yeah, I know that we have for Arabic, for modern Arabic, for example, there is some words.
You mean guidelines of tree banking?
Yes.
In Arabic or for Arabic?
No, guidelines to tree bank Arabic. Arabic, yeah. And of course there are many other guidelines for other languages, okay? So one should first know what's there, okay? Then have a look at the documentation and start doing something. I would say that these are the basics. And this is one approach. Another approach might be, which is much easier, okay, just to, if you wanted to kind of play around with the tool and with your students without, put too much pressure on them, just to see what happens, to try to give, for example, some basic principles, okay, and see if they, what we get, basically, because I would say that in general, for example, the building of the tree, okay, should be kind of intuitive, at least to some extent, okay. But this is another experience, so okay, this is very different. Also in terms of what you are producing, okay. So what I would say is that much depends, okay, on what exactly you want to do. I have in my mind, I know some people, and I know what they are doing in terms of tree banking, and I would say they are more on the side of standard tree banking. For example, for ancient Greek and Latin, we have already a lot of documentation. We have I would say an already established school for that, and so everything is very easy in that respect. But of course, if we talk about tree banking, Arabic or even French or even Italian, whatever,
well, I think
the story is a little bit
different. I think that we're talking about Greek.
Yeah,
so it's like tree banking 101. What you need to know before you start doing this, a little theoretical background, a little dependency grammar spiel, and maybe some examples, and then these are the tools that you use. Good luck. We will see you in 2 months.
I would like tree banking. We're at the point, and Giuseppe, we know this already, that we need to start pointing to what amazing things we can do now. With this is how you do tree banking, but I have all of the first book of Thucydides tree banked, and I have all of Homer tree banked. What can we do that we can never do before? And there's lots of stuff. There's now time, and the Gormans have done that. You've written about this. You've published stuff on this. Giuseppe.
Yeah, okay, but I think again here the issues are of two kinds, because something is the annotation process, and these are some implications and some usefulness, and something different is trying to get something out of your data. These are two different tasks.
Well, I mean, but why not? I mean, I think what Greg's saying, I think that's great. Yeah. I mean, let's say that we've got an hour, and in our common session, and you begin with, why do we want to tree bank? And you give one example of an amazing thing, a question that you can answer, and then say, well, how did we get there? Because, and then you start and give us sort of a basic background into it.
One, something which I think might be very, which we already basically have, and I think that it's a very feasible, might be that we can pairs students from two different countries, for example, assign them the same passage. Okay, maybe I can introduce where I give some general instruction, and basically I will say, okay, we have these guidelines, have a look at them, then they can try to tree bank the same passage, and then we can compare this automatically, and then okay, we can discuss this. But of course, I would also like, since tree banking is a kind of transnational, and so everything is about tree banking. But in this case, I also need your support in terms of, I mean, we have this tool that I built about comparing where you can easily see differences. So I think that this is, it might be very interesting to see if the two students, if the two annotations, to what extent they agree and what the differences are. I mean, this, I mean, when you start talking and discussing the differences, this might take an entire year because, I mean, there's really a lot to do, and maybe this is also the best way to learn exactly the guidelines, the grammar of the language, and so to me this might be the easiest and most feasible thing to do because you can connect people working in two different countries. You basically make them connect and communicate. And since we have this automatic tool, basically this might be extremely easy because reviewing everything manually be extremely difficult and
that sounds great. So I will volunteer at least a few students. If you know, maybe this is a 2-week session where you start 1 week, you give us some examples of some often things that come from this, and then you introduce it to us and you say, okay, I want you to go off and do these sentences, and then we'll send me your results, and then we come back the next week and you take us through and look at it and show how we can compare them. And I think that would be a fantastic 2-session thing. It would be fabulous. I'm there.
Okay, so the idea, just to, in terms of schedule, you're proposing to,
earlier would be the better for me on that.
So you
can you kindly add, because I can't follow everything, there are many comments in the chat, so if you can help me.
So I would say early on, like in February, you know, to maybe February 10th and 17th. And then that would be a big boost for our project that we're going to report on the 23rd, right?
Okay, we might, on Tuesday,
is Wednesday
is
5?
Is it always on Tuesday?
No, Wednesday.
Wednesday.
So it's Wednesday 5:30 set in stone now.
Okay.
Sorry?
Is that going to work for you?
Is that as long as I know, yeah, that's fine. I'll just, if it's now set in stone, then I can tell my administrator to add it to our webpage right now.
Yeah. So, do you agree on this? Wednesday 5:30.
So
we have to.
I'll make just if 6 to 7 worked, it makes life simpler at the Tufts end, but that's only one tiny data point. I'm just saying, if the difference between 5:30, it's 5:30 versus 6. That's 4:30 versus 5:30 UK time.
I was going to try to push it earlier rather than later.
Beginning on the hour is always better for us. Just in terms of our data, so it probably is for you at Tufts, isn't it?
Because we have at noon on Mondays we have an empty block where there are no classes. So I know that there'll be faculty meetings, but there are no classes then. So I can always I have a higher probability of getting students on Wednesday at noon Boston time, 5 p.m. your time, 6 p.m. Leipzig time, except for like the week or two around the change when it's different. But again, I just suggest that if it's not a cost to anyone else, I would suggest that. If it is a cost, then we'll make it work.
So you're proposing 5 o'clock, sort of London, right? Because London, are you the same?
Let's stick to London, so we all know what we're talking about. We're moving it to 6 o'clock Leipzig.
Yeah.
I mean, if I had the choice and it wasn't bothering anyone else, I'd try and push it towards 5 o'clock Leipzig time, but you're both being too polite.
What if we are not teaching at that time? I mean, my class is. So how do I bring my students to present?
It will be archived. It will be archived.
Yeah. So we can do it. It doesn't matter.
Yes. Also because we have a limit. Google Hangout can host only 10 people. This is another thing to remember.
But other people can watch on YouTube simultaneously.
Yeah, definitely. Yes, of course.
But only 10 can take part.
Yeah.
So I've gotten tons, a long email already from Vanessa about
Yes. Okay, so
This is awesome.
because there is, as you can see in the chat, we have many things. So for remote participants, please interrupt me because I can't follow the Google Doc in the chat. But as far as I see,
After the, no, just to understand.
no, because there is also an interesting intervention from Vanessa and Denise, just to remember. Just to remember.
Okay, so Vanessa wants an introduction too. So that would work.
So,
Just, I think it's preliminary that we didn't mention that for those of you who are newcomers like me, how do you, in practice, how do you do with your students? So you're supposed to be with them and do a Google Hangout, so that it's only one person for Google Hangout, because
If you want, you can be in the class.
It gets crowded, right?
Yeah.
Or you can listen to the stream. So
Yes.
You can listen to the stream, and if you have question and answers engaged, then students, even listening to the stream, can ask questions.
So okay. So that could be online.
Yeah. And it will all be archived too, so if you can't meet at that particular time, and quite frankly, we've had really good results of listening as a group to an archived lecture.
Yeah.
Because you can stop it, you can talk about it, you can have students ask, well, what would you ask that question? Is that your question? Or how would you, I mean, it can be very effective way to use, in fact, some respects much better than the live event.
Yeah. And Ken, if I understand, this is part of the tutorial in the sense that the teacher at his home institution, so see the conversation online with the students, and he helps them to, this is the tutorial also.
And this gets back to, if you have a lecture with PowerPoints in English that's recorded, and you're in Egypt, and the people don't have to respond in real time, and the PowerPoints are a lot easier, usually all you need to figure out anyway.
No, of course, and then I put everything in GitHub. You have the conversation, the broadcast of conversation, and then the slides or other data. So you can use them with your students, not during the conversation, but after.
So essentially, for me and my students to present on the 20th, we would have to record it on the previous video.
No. In this case, if you want, you have this conversation.
Yeah, because we won't have, we will have another class at time on the 20th.
Okay.
So we'll have to do it.
If we have,
Okay.
this is something we can't.
So we would, they can record this stuff anytime they want, so long as it's ready and up front. And that gives them also, they can see, they hate it. I hate it, seeing yourself, but, the presentation skills, how do you do it? I'd love to have Aurélien, your students present in French, and then we could figure out how good is our, we get the transcriptions these days. Some of our news feeds, some of our TV shows do it in real time. So if we had, errorful automatic speech recognition of the French with French PowerPoints, that'd be kind of cool. I'd go for that.
We have.
Yeah,
I don't know if you're interested in doing this, Greg. But we've been using. I should say I have been using this service called Rev. Do you know about this?
No.
It is a service where it's all online, all web interface. If you have a recording of a whatever, you upload it, and you tell them what kind of a transcript you want, and then they get it back to you sometimes within 24 hours. And it's like,
how much does it cost?
It's cheap. Compared to, it's like I did a couple of focus groups that I needed to have transcribed. It's like $100.
I think we have the and for me, when I'm learning the language, especially French, you know, I want to have a transcript, you know, because the damn language doesn't sound like it's written. It's all, you can code everything, as you know better than I. But I mean, having this, you know, having the language with the transcript, a transcript and the text, and the PowerPoints, you know, you're really going to be able to get a lot. And if you don't know any French, maybe not, but if you're, certainly with the English, if we get some transcriptions and then get a transcript of the English to go with our horrible spoken American English.
Yeah, it's a fantastic service, and the turnaround is very fast.
Okay, so maybe, we have remote participants. Maybe they want to say something, because there is a horrible conversation in the chat, but...
Is Vanessa, would that address Vanessa's wish?
Yes, so, yeah. Vanessa, okay. Vanessa, can you hear us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. So, do you have any comments, questions?
I'm just still getting the idea of what this is about. And by the way, Bob is here too. But, you know, we're pretty flexible and are willing to present anytime on anything that's related to tree banking. I sent Greg some research ideas that we're starting to think about, but there's clearly, we could talk about some of the results we're getting, preliminary results that Giuseppe saw the other day in our presentation, focusing on the syntax words.
I think that there are also two kinds of contributions. For example, Vanessa could talk about the results that she's getting on analyzing, querying her data. And this is, for example, one opportunity. The same review about the metrics that you are using. And then something related but different is working on producing annotations. I mean, we are still talking about tree banking, but these are two different aspects. So, and
I wanted to ask her a question for a point of clarity. How long are these sessions? Because I remember, I think last year around 45 minutes to an hour.
1 hour,
Yeah.
60 minutes.
So is there a particular reason? I mean, I guess speaking for half an hour is particularly long. You can't go in depth. But is there a reason there couldn't be split sessions? Where, I mean, I guess we don't have an overwhelming number of people volunteering at the moment, but so if you were talking about research results for tree banking, and you just talked about two different types of people who gather research results, you could have one session that's dedicated to these are the sort of research results we get out of tree banking, and you could have multiple people speaking in that scenario. But now the problem I see with that is that, you know, people get cut short and they're stepping on each other's toes and might run long. But
let me just add to that, and that is that, you know, we've been doing this for 15 years, and we have learned that the quality of common sessions increases rather substantially when more than one person is involved in it. And it has to do with the comparanda that students bring to an online presentation. Nobody speaks online for an hour.
Yeah.
That just doesn't happen in anyone's experience, okay? So, and you can look at news programs, talk, whatever it is, there's always some sort of dialogic principle at work. The presentations are always segmented into smaller chunks. There's often a menu and a stacked tree of topics. I mean, so I certainly advocate some sort of collaborative, joint, multiple personality event on these common sessions. We just, you know, these are not canned lectures. These are not a person speaking into some camera for 45 minutes. They shouldn't be. Students will zone out, and so there needs to be change, there needs to be assignments, there needs to be interactivity, and if there's more than one person involved, so much the better. We did an analysis of just one episode of a news program in the United States. This is national NPR, a public broadcasting system. And there were, I think, a total of something on the order of, I'll have to look at the statistics, but it was an unbelievable number of people participated in that program. It's just, I think it was like 20 or 30 people actually participated, were on camera, contributing to that thing. And so the whole notion of one person sitting and doing the whole thing is just something that just doesn't really exist in the real world.
It will make the scheduling a little tougher. I mean, theoretically, in a common session, talking about results, Vanessa, Robert, and I could all participate in one.
Yeah.
Plus, you guys are kind of in the same general vicinity in space.
And the results that we presented in the 3 banks, they could fit nicely. What do you think?
Yeah, but in that case, if you understand that each of you will speak for a short amount of time.
We can have 75 minutes if you want,
yeah,
like the courses we have here. We said 60 minutes, but we can.
Just about the number of slots in material, that the number of slots that we have, and the number of presentations that we want to have. Of course, the principle of having more people taking part in the same hangout is of course, it requires maybe a little bit more operation.
It does. It does. You do have to
in the sense
produce
that
that,
you. Yeah, but how many of these kinds of multi-participant sessions can we have?
Well, what I'm starting to notice is that people are kind of pairing off into individual projects, which seems to keep happening. I mean, there's some mention in the chat from individuals that are overhearing snippets of the conversation and want to work together with other people. And what it seems is if we're going to, I mean, granted, the big dream is everyone's working together with everyone, but if we have people starting to pair off into groups, that seems like a natural implementation for research presentation.
How do you try whether or not people so that
No. That was an analysis. We can't do that, but we do. So, for example, for the introduction to, there's no reason why it couldn't take the form of an interview. Giuseppe, tell us why
Many be scared.
Why
interview Arabic students. No, you interview students from
why would we want to tree bank? Giuseppe can say, well, that's a good question, and here's the results. And I said, so Giuseppe, how do I get started? What's the first thing? This is something that students have seen 100 times, thousands of times, watching this old house, cooking programs, remodeling programs. We can easily do that. It doesn't take much effort at all. And we can easily be, and you can say, well, what about Latin? And you just say, well, I'd love to do Latin, but who's really good at doing Latin? It's Anastasia.
So
Anastasia, tell us about
I mean, it's easy for them to be free for
Sorry. It's a mess because we have remote students. We can't talk together. Yeah. So sorry. We can't talk about this session. Sorry. So no, because
of course.
We have just 40 minutes, and I want this. At 7 p.m. we have to leave this room with the schedule.
Okay, guys. Sorry.
Neve, yes.
Can I suggest something? I like very much this idea about having a Socratic conversation on a certain theme, and I think that what we could think about is that we could form groups depending on who is interested in what, and then we could parcel out our curriculum in blocks. And let's say for the 4 weeks we are doing tree baking, for the 4 weeks they are doing text aligning, for the 4 weeks we are doing the named entities, and these are the people who will be doing this. And then those people can all go on in a common session. So the idea would be to have 4 or 5 people who then will get together independently and prepare the presentations and lead everybody through this part of the course. So then we could have something like the format that I believe Kenny has spoken about.
Yeah. Excellent.
I can volunteer for the text alignment, and I welcome other partners.
Well, in the chat, Anise is interested in alignment, also in tree banking, of course. Or yeah.
I'm suggesting that I should do several things at once because I have several groups, very small groups of students with different backgrounds and different interests. And I was thinking about the least common denominator of them all. And I will have also archaeology students, which we can double with epigraphy. Homeric students, to which I can introduce the Iliad tree banking net. We have to see what results we can achieve and we can do translation alignments of the, say, first book of Iliad in Bulgarian, aligned to the original. So I'm interested in doing something, but time-wise I'm very limited because I will travel a lot the next semester. So I would like either May the 11th or June the 29th, preferably the latter date. I call this something like Homeric and epigraphic poetry. Tree bank analysis, translation annotation, and epigraphical markup. And probably we will look up and compare some typical formulas which are recurring from epic poetry until these epigraphic metrical inscriptions. Eventually, we'll possibly using such tools as the Chicago Homer, for example. Can I suggest doing this, and how does it stick with the other things that are being proposed here? It's very specific because of the type of the profile of the students I have this semester.
With regards to what another different thing with regards to what Gary just entered about epigraphy, I did. It was just a 1 hour hands-on 3D digitization of artifacts. I took the students outside in campus, and we used 3D scanners, and then I took them to the library, and we had a short session with 3D printing of what we scanned. We can, if you want to tie that up in a way, I could also. Because I'm not typing anything, I'm just throwing it out.
Something that's missing from the program altogether is any reference to 3D, either imaging or modeling, which would be quite interesting.
And I can ask from the librarians, we have particular people in the libraries working with 3D printing to give us part of the session will be them explaining what they do and showing us.
Definitely.
So would it be interesting to have a 2-week block on a whole variety of 3D technologies where maybe 1 half-hour discussion in those 2 weeks is what you're describing, another half-hour to talk about some of the stuff we do in our training thing, and other people can chip in on that.
We can have, so after, I see, February 24 and March 2, Gabby and Marie-Claire, and maybe Michelle, and then maybe...
I just made that up.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I know. Yeah, well, how is the verb, Gabby? There is this interesting verb, English...
to be shown.
Yes. And you know, after 7 o'clock, they can't leave anything back. I mean, Monica made it.
No, well, but maybe Eleni, we have March 9 and March 16 as possible days for you, because then I still see March 30, and I see in the chat that, for example, Matthew is interested in Egypt because I'm looking. Wait a second. Yes, in working with the Egypt text because it can be useful for his course in the fall. So maybe after Kenny and Usama.
And this is probably the material that Greg was mentioning, the sources for. So
yes.
We would be working on that.
So Matthew, I don't know. Would it be good for you on March 30?
Matthew?
Wait 1 second.
Okay.
That should be fine. I'm also interested in working with the use of pre-existing tree banks because in my Latin 3 the coming semester we're going to be using the previously tree banked Res Gestae Divi Augusti as a reference point.
And Eileen, you work on the Res Gestae, but this is another. We have to.
We have it all online. The text as well.
Yeah.
Right, so the idea would be to use the existing tree bank as essentially a commentary for students to learn, and then of course have them tree bank other texts later. But I want to see basically how we can integrate this into classroom pedagogy instead of creating tree banks by using tree banks.
Okay, so.
So we don't have any named entity sessions up there yet.
Yeah.
Just to say, my students are there up until March 30th. That's the end of our term.
Okay.
Monica, what did I say in relation to tree banking part 2?
I don't know. It's not my fault. Someone else?
No, that's left over from the beginning of the discussion.
No, because the first time we introduce it, and then we have assignments to the students, and then the next week they come back and we talk about it.
Introduction to tree banking.
That would be talking about the results. That would be talking about comparison, how you do comparison, how you look at compare tree banks. It's going to be fantastic. It's going to go viral. I mean, it will be everywhere.
You'll be right up there with the cats, who said that? You'll be up there with cat videos.
So we don't have many weeks to well, yes, what we have. So.
In terms of named entities, I was thinking, although the work that I was thinking about for geography is not strictly not only named entities. I don't really have preferences, or I don't have particular necessities, but the Animate Grid at the beginning of May would be okay because I would be able also to present the implementation of our annotation interface.
Yes.
And everything would be perfect.
If I'm the only one to mention that named entities are of interest, if it's more of an introduction, that would make sense to have it earlier.
And that was my next thing.
Yeah.
I could join perhaps the February 24th session about ancient text markup, because that's one of my interests, markup of geographical data. That would be perfect as an introductory session. I will not be able to present the annotation interface because it won't be implemented by February the 24th, but it's not going to be a problem.
So maybe we should break up those two Shanghai features into slightly differently. So if we're talking, I was thinking an hour on basic text markup, so really light and start text markup right from scratch. You could just about do that in an hour if the students got tutorials afterwards and have potential stuff to do stuff. And then I was thinking the second session that I decided envisaged there was on using various tools that students can use to enrich existing collections of, in particular, epigraphic, but other kinds of data, such as the Wikimedia Commons assigning things, going to Flickr, finding Greek inscriptions and attaching PHI numbers and other CTS URNs to the inscriptions, and all that sort of thing. Sort of things that Marie Claire is doing, and whatever with students, and that could be quite a nice session. And then annotating names, personal names and place names in text. I was thinking it was a separate section, but more under named entities than under text. So, but the dates I have absolutely no opinion on. I mean, move any of those around. If you thought it would be useful to put the named entity annotation earlier, either pedagogically or because some of the dates work better for you, that would be great. So in the named entity, there's stuff I want to contribute to that from the Snapdragon project. There's stuff I think we want to show people Recogito.
Yes.
That's
implementation I'm talking about.
Okay. So
we could have a session, and for March it will be ready, sure, but by the end of April it will be ready.
But we could show people. I mean, I'm just trying to get something in before the end of March, just because I felt like showing
Yeah.
So if we could get sort of Snap and Recogito session,
yes,
maybe replace
that could be possible.
So maybe we move these. Then I just thought I can do that in this.
Yes.
And so go through these names, we'll do fictional. So then there's something with Snap and Recogito and named entity stuff generally.
Yeah, that would be good.
There may be other components to NER on top of that we could include in there. Would that be something you'd be interested in being involved in the general introduction to that?
Oh yeah.
We've got to make any head.
Yeah. If we don't have a computer.
Yeah. So.
Would you like to take the March 16th for 3D digitization, following that, or?
Yeah.
Or we could do that as a double header, and we could do half an hour each, or
Yeah.
sort of discussions.
I'm looking at March 2nd because we are on spring break, but I could join you March 9th if you want to.
Yes, March 9th might be more interesting. Yeah. March 9th is definitely the one that I would hope Mary Claire would get involved in as well. Anywhere else on that sort of stuff? I mean, if we could get Richard to come along for that, that would be great. He's not in this room, so I don't know if we're allowed to put his name down.
Yes.
Wait, who is this?
Pietro.
In parentheses, because he would be.
Yeah.
I mean, two of the three technologies I know about, he basically invented, so it would be a bit.
Having, for instance, Snap and Recogito, you mean just using the interfaces, or showing the outputs?
Snap doesn't have an interface, so it's
yes. My point is that you have text markup after that. It's a bit strange.
Well, no, it's not.
I think originally I was thinking that way, but actually now I think the text markup is specifically about line style structural text markup. Named entity recognition. Text doesn't need to be marked up to do that necessarily. You could do it in either order, and I think it would work. And in some ways, it's less complicated. Named entity saying, here's a plain text, its name is this person here. That's quite easy to understand. Explaining lines, some of the students won't be able to backgrounds. They'll need to get their head around the logic before they can get their head around it. So. Okay, in some ways you could
the logic of the ontology and the URIs, but not necessarily the implementation verified.
For Snap, the Recogito, yes. The Recogito will actually see some tools. Would go to the thing and say, look, here's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages of text in Greek, in Latin, in English, in Chinese, whatever else. You can highlight it, identify the place on this. It's introductory.
I know the Sorry. Yes.
So I just saw that in 27 just go on. And this is the day I was thinking about.
You want that day?
Can we do that? Yeah, okay, that would be fantastic. We're going to propose to do this thing that we talked about, Monica, on transition alignment. I mean, I know that now the mention of Aristotle's name will generate panic, and everyone said, but this is class we're going to teach.
You're not talking about transition, right?
No. Translation alignment. So Zama and I were thinking we might be doing something with Greek, Latin, and Arabic.
So sorry. We can't talk together because it's a mess. I have the microphone, there are people. So Riccardo,
Okay, so Zama and I were talking about joining forces and
doing a session on translational languages involving...
Giuseppe, sorry. Giuseppe and Simone, I can't hear. I have the microphone. People, it's a mess. One person, sorry.
Don't worry. Aristotle selections, translational languages, Greek, Latin, and Arabic.
Yeah. Do you want to say that again? Sorry.
Aristotle selections of texts from the classical teach language.
Yes.
Of translational language, Arabic, Latin, and Greek, of course. With Usama.
Okay, when?
April 27th, and whether or not there will be students doing this with us will depend on what kind of students I get in the course.
Yes.
Because maybe I only get philosophy students who won't have any languages except English, perhaps.
Yeah.
So that's the plan. Then let's see who gets involved. But we will definitely do this on the 27th.
Okay.
People are interested in having this.
That's great. You can write that on the Google Doc. And yes, Maya?
Yeah, I want to involve Muhammad in this because he was also interested in that. And
Lovely. Of course. Yes. So there's 3 of us at least already.
Okay, so please write for April 27. You have the Google Doc, so you can.
Thank you, Chiara, for.
Yes. So then, well, for the alignment, I see online, so Neven, Anise. Do you want to work together on the alignment? Anise, Neven, are you there?
Yes. I would certainly like to work with Anise, and I'm thinking about how this could be presented. But I think that if Anise agrees, then we could work something out and with our students give a presentation, or even make a presentation in 2 parts, in 2 sessions. The only thing is that in Zagreb the term starts in March, so we go from March until the middle of June. So these are either the beginning of March would be great for me, or sometime in April.
Well, I'm not. I won't be here from the end of April to beginning of May. So, but we can talk about that and find a date, because my calendar is begins in March too. So I think we can fix it.
We have May 11 and May 18. Maybe Neven is too late for you. But in the
No, it's fine. That's okay.
Yes, because now the calendar is quite full.
It's full, but it's also very speculative.
Yeah.
Well, Chris just pointed out that I volunteered myself for a session when I was 13 years old. So that's that one. 2 days after, but I'm going to take a holiday. I'm going to take you up with your offer for 3 weeks.
Yeah. And I know that, as Federico mentioned before, March 23 is the week of Easter.
Yeah, so Easter is
When's Easter, right?
Which Easter?
the Sunday after the week.
But, okay, so...
Catholic Easter is our Easter. If I basic, so...
Well, we can do that. We can skip a week. I don't know. I know that students are not on campus on that week, but
maybe a quick report or something.
You can skip a week, sure. I mean, it depends also on the different. I mean, we're not giving the course this year, and I know that in Norway there's nobody in campus that week. But I don't know, maybe in the other countries, yes.
But the same in Italy too, during Easter week, the same.
But it's the yeah.
Is that Passover, Easter?
Yes, because we have one week of holidays.
No, you should close it down. Yeah, don't do anything that week. Seriously. Yeah. I mean, there will be nothing going on anywhere.
But how is it in the US?
But you are on that week.
Is that our week?
Yes.
Yes.
Wait, no. No, wait.
Yeah.
Is that the week of Easter and Passover?
Yeah, why you chose that.
Well, then let us go then we'll go the next week, because we shouldn't, I don't think, I mean, we're certainly, all of our institutions will be closed down for Passover and Easter.
What is Passover?
It's typically the same time as
No, but Passover, what is it? I don't know.
Oh, it's a Jewish holiday.
It's
It's a Jewish That's the reason why there's Easter.
Yes.
Osama, we'll go the next week then. Is that when, if Easter is then, we can't.
And maybe if you go to March 30, Matthew Harrington can join you, because as far as I see, he is interested in working on that. Am I correct, Matthew?
Yes.
Does it work for you to present with Candy Morel and Usama? I don't know if...
What day?
March 30, Wednesday.
Yes, March 30 can be fine.
Okay.
So we'll just go next week.
So to banking. Okay.
They don't seem to match, Easter and Passover. 22nd of April to 30th of April, and Easter is the 27th of March.
So Friday is April 22nd. It's the same. Yeah. It's the same weekend. I think it's because Easter maybe this printed over this Orthodox Easter. Orthodox Easter is here. Well, so Passover begins. Yes. Passover begins. The Passover begins will be. But I don't think
March. So the Passover is the month after.
Oh, that's right. Yes, I got
Monica, where are we now?
I don't know.
Okay, let's find out.
Stelios, where are you? I don't see you.
Exactly. I would propose either to join you in annotating quotation and text
Yes.
reviews.
Yes.
That would be a possibility.
Yes.
The other thing, well, I'm interested in is, of course, modeling text for born digital edition. So swimming between paper edition and the digital edition.
We said that
try to take account of the genre of the text and then think how, using TEI XML, we should model the text in order to create a digital edition, which is of course more kind of reflection, but for the genre of the text on which I'm working now, lexicography, I have some more concrete ideas.
I'm doing the same for geography, actually.
So we could actually have a joint section there, modeling different philological texts or technical texts, because geography and lexicography are technical texts, not literature. Okay. And perhaps I could contribute in both sessions if
So,
wished and possible.
what do you think? June the 1st for these
For me,
editions?
everything is fine.
Chiara and you, and then after June the 8th, you and me about quotations.
Let's do it like that. That's lovely.
So,
Is it still possible to jump in?
Sure.
So the boat will float. It's just me. Actually, on any of these about modeling, either quotations and reuse or modeling as you find it.
I have one thing here, and I'm going to pose this to the SunoikisisDC brain trust and directorate, if you will. On June 15th, is the common day of the Sunoikis planning session in Washington, D.C. We could make it possible for SunoikisisDC to address and work with 20 faculty members in the United States that are working on the advanced courses for the following fall. What would you like to tell them? I mean, you would have that time. This is your opportunity to get them all excited about something, to introduce something. Find some way to, think about what you would like to do that, and you can have that time.
Yeah,
it would be
it's possible that I will be there.
Yeah,
I will join you.
Monica will be there. You can.
It's possible.
So you could. I mean, there's. Why don't you? I mean, one possibility would be to kind of keep that open.
Yeah.
And then you could actually show things.
Yeah.
From the whole course.
Yeah.
Snippets or highlights. It could be Monica's top 10 from the spring course. It could be awesome.
Very ESPN-like.
Exactly. And Greg could be there, and it could be pardon the interruption between Monica and Greg.
Of course. Yeah.
I think we can revisit March 23rd. I think the reason for having no class on that week is dissolved, and that's my penultimate week, so I really prefer not to lose my students to lose the opportunity to have a class that week.
When, sorry?
Well,
March 23rd.
Well, it's not because the Christian Easter is that something.
Yeah, it's on
and students, many students will.
It's still term time for us. They get Friday off to the following Monday off.
Well, maybe you can, or someone else. So.
Yeah, we can still have a session.
Yeah, no, I
There
agree.
were weeks when we can't turn up. One of the weeks in February was our midterm.
Yeah. For those who,
So I think equally, we could have, they could get classes in that session. They also turn up to everything.
Yeah.
I mean, my students are only getting 8 weeks of this anyway. I don't want to lose another one.
We don't get a day.
Yeah.
Okay, who is for March 23?
Oh, I see.
Team.
No.
No, I don't see you. I don't see you
I'm
here.
Sorry. No, I'm sorry. Don't pay attention.
But I don't see you in this.
I'm not in this yet. I don't. know entirely whatever is able for a session.
So we start with an introduction, then 2 weeks on tree banking, then sort of NER, 2 weeks on text markup, 3D imaging and modeling, something, and then a week of tree banking.
Yeah.
Again. What's missing? I mean, including things that are happening later. What's missing from those 9 weeks?
Annotation alignment.
Yeah, there's a bit of that. A bit of that in March 9. Not much. That's it.
There is text alignment and translation in approximately 7.
Yeah. I mean, what's missing from the first 9 weeks, though? I mean,
well, what's missing for yours is this is really
that's
what you want.
Yeah.
What would you like?
Well,
Do we want
that's why I'm
to-
thinking out loud. Like, not immediate things.
You said that maybe we can have 2 weeks of 3D imaging and modeling, or, oh, no, sorry.
We were talking with what Vanessa suggested about presenting results and metrics, and actually maybe.
Okay, and then we need your true bank metrics, maybe. Eleni, I don't know. Do you want to present on March 23, Eleni? Or is it too much?
I'm trying to think. I have something that I'm not sure.
I may say so. There's something I miss a little bit. I mean, parsers and tools that are used to assess big data extraneously, not in an environment like Artusa or an XML editor, but a Python script that somebody has written in order to get statistical or other kind of data extraneously to existing programming. I think it would be nice. Data query, data mining, stuff like that. It would be very nice to have a session on that.
Who wants to teach that?
That's not just a question.
Well, my PhD student, Saeed, in Iran, is doing a dissertation where he's done exactly that. He is one of the people who's taken a bunch of existing tree bank data and then run it, use it as training data, and then measure the results. But we also heard from Amir, somebody had tree bank data and then ran it everything else and had 61% accuracy and was stringent metric. Who was that? It just happens to go on. But I've seen that it's now a pretty common thing. But I believe Saeed might be able to do it because it's his work. And the real question is, interesting question is, what can you get from data where you have all those errors? You actually can get quite a lot. The errors tend to be randomly distributed. So the signal floats up.
Can we go about that second day on 3D modeling? There would be one day that introduced.
So if we did 1 week on imaging and another week on modeling?
Yeah.
Maybe.
I mean, I do think that there's a lot there.
I did a live session on 3D scanning, different ways of scanning and painting.
Yeah, certainly if she's interested, my colleague in the area can certainly talk about that with you in the interest of not long to talk for an hour. And then we try and get some people involved in the modeling one following.
I may be traveling, so so the 16th works, but I don't know what to
I mean, it seems like
Are you saying you might be traveling and you don't want to miss it, or you might be traveling so you'll?
So I'm not sure if I will be able to do it.
Right.
The
But
23rd.
if we found other people to do it, you can do it.
One of the shared students is doing.
Modeling.
She could potentially join.
Okay, we could. So we could cluster some people together to talk about modeling. Okay, so let's say this one's a 3D imaging. etc. Yeah, we have what we want from that. I mean, we have to ask all those people, but we can, between us, I think we can figure it out, even if all of those people say they don't want to teach our classes, but get students doing it.
Yeah. Of course, we have to remember, as Matthew writes, that there is a difference in the start time of daylight saving times in the USA and there is a 1 month of difference. I know.
Yeah, 2 to 3 weeks usually. 3 weeks.
Yeah.
When it's different. I say Leipzig weeks. Since we're using Leipzig time on here always, it's always Leipzig time. So
if you
US time is an hour out for those 3 weeks.
Okay.
Likewise, if anyone's in a different time zone in the East, Leipzig has to win.
Yes, Leipzig. Okay.
Because not all of the US goes in the same time zone either, right?
No, we all go at the same time.
It's March 13th.
Is it one county in Kentucky that's
Indiana doesn't change.
Yeah.
Arizona also doesn't observe that.
I think that this year Leipzig, if in US is March 13th, then it's the same because in Germany it's the last weekend of March.
Right.
So probably it's the same.
Did we fix on the final set in stone time, by the way?
No,
Greg and I were being polite to each other for a while.
Yeah. So as for now is 5:30, 6:45 because if we have these common sessions. Do you agree? 75 minutes because we have sessions with 3 people. So.
Yeah. Could we move to the start time on the hour instead of the half hour?
At 5.
I mean, I think it was Greg was advocating for 6.
6,
yeah. It was fine.
Well, you go 5:30 to 7, if you want, or 5:30 to 6:45, or 5. I don't know. I'm totally confused. So whatever. I think a lot of this good stuff will be recorded. And I'm sure some of my students will not be able to make the special that's at the time anyway. I'm not going to sweat it. I'll make sure that if they participate, they record a presentation and/or they watch a presentation, and I don't care when they do it.
So then we should probably do it. That's most convenient for Gabby, right?
Well, I suspect, well, Gabby, it's going to be the time for your course, so everyone will be guaranteed.
It will, yeah.
So let's have 5 o'clock, like start at 5. 5 to 6. 5 to 6:15. 5 to 6:15. Bless you.
Thank you. Yes, actually, it doesn't matter if we are not able to be live ever because I will be teaching another course.
No,
at that time.
of course, no.
Make it a bit more open for our collaborative sessions.
So we still have June. Irene.
For the presentation days.
Yeah, you could make us just.
I just wanted to know the exercises would actually
Maybe
live, but it would have to be.
But it's
So we still have May 25, June 22, and July 6.
I would like to see, I see we have Arabic, Aristotle, Arabic, Greek, Aristotle already, but I wouldn't mind seeing an updated version of Open Persian.
Yeah.
Reading Persian classical poetry and getting that into here and showing people the same methods that are using the Greek and Latin applied to Persian, open that language up as well. And this would be a good thing for your dissertation.
So we have Open Persian, and then Irene. June 22 is fine for Irene. Okay. And May 25 for you?
July 6th.
Or July 6th. Do we want a final? No, because I'm sure that I should do that. So let's skip. Okay.
Then, so if you don't mind July 6th.
Okay,
yes,
okay. Yes, excellent. I write Open Persian, then of course we have time to. And Irene, what? So I got your email.
Hi. Well, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Well, I edited a little bit because after the common session we have now, I changed my mind, and I think that we may contribute to SunoikisisDC of this year, of next year, in a different way, as you would like to focus not on Thucydides, as I was thinking before. We may contribute with our two projects we have in digital humanities. The first one is digitalizing of Greek inscriptions of Georgia. This is ongoing project, and we'll already have some results for June, or better for July. And another project is the one which I started in Leipzig last year in December, which is rethinking Plato using digital methods. So, what do you think about it?
Yeah, sorry, I have to mute you, Irina. So both are fine. We are not focusing on Thucydides, but this doesn't mean that you can present something on Thucydides, of course. But I think that digitizing inscriptions from Georgia is great, and so we still have May 20. So you can have two common sessions, one on June 22 for inscriptions from Georgia, and then May 25, if we don't have other people, you can present Plato. I don't know if that. Now I'm a bit lost. So there are other desiderata. So. So Irina, I think that both are great. Okay, May 25 I prefer for Plato. Okay, so I put Irina. And okay. Okay, we have What do you think? It's not perfect. We are not looking for perfection.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
But it works. We have a lot, yes. Wow, 23 weeks.
Good.
3 minutes late.
Yes.
Which really means it's only 3 minutes late.
Yes, 3 minutes late. Okay, now you're free.
Well, we should thank everybody for coming, both virtually and.
Yes.
And I want to thank Monica, in particular, for everything she's done for Sunoikis this year and last year, and shepherding it through, and just being a real rock here, upon which the rest of us can depend. So thank you very much. I'd also like to thank Giuseppe, because I didn't get a chance to thank him at the end of the tree banking workshop. Yes. Some of you participated in it earlier this week for having organized that as well. And so even though some of you weren't there, I'm going to